Hello, hello, hello. What is going on, everybody? What is going on? What is going on? Y'all doing okay? Hmm? This was a fucking phenomenal chapter. This chapter was really, really fucking good. This chapter was. It's a really good chapter when, even without the crazy ending cliffhanger, just the main action of the chapter makes up a phenomenal, story. I thought this was a phenomenal chapter for Gaban. And then the Gunkko, Brook, Emu stuff at the end just steals the show. So just a phenomenal chapter. Phenomenal, phenomenal chapter. Yeah, I just... Elbaf is taken off. Elbaf is taken off. I am very curious what's going on in Mauritius. We got a lot to talk about here. We got a lot of shit to talk about. Let me do this real quick. Let me do this. Hold on. Let me send this shit to the editor. All right. And my camera is a bit too zoomed in right now. I'm trying to change that in the future. Yeah. Okay. All right. You all like the chapter? The Tony Scopper team up? I fucking forgot to talk about... I just did the chapter review, and I literally talked in the chapter review about how there's 4 Straw Hats that I'm very excited about for this arc, who have been very neglected, and Chopper was the 4th one, but I was going to list him last, so I fucking forgot about him. But have you guys seen this shit before? When was the last time that we saw this? When is the last time that we saw clear character setups for all of the Straw Hats? Not all, but the majority of the Straw Hats this early into an arc. Like, not just, like, in Wano, it was like, well, we'll give him shit to do. Like, Nami, you pretend to be a ninja or something like that. This is different from shit to do. This is stuff that's, like, tied to their character. Robin, already a very intense, dramatic storyline, beginning with Saul, and then Sommer's, like, basically destroying Saul, and then Robin's whole journey to try and save the crew and everything. Robin's getting an intense, emotional storyline right off the bat, right? Frankie, fucking ancient laboratory, mural shit, learning about the atom tree where the Sunny was fucking made. So much shit for Frankie. So much shit for Frankie right here. And now fucking Brook. Brook, apparently, we're finding out his second backstory is fucking past, and it's directly tied to Gunkko and Emu and the Holy Knights. What the fuck? And then the bonus, the cherry on top, is fucking Chopper. Not saying some dumbass Chopper shit like usual, but instead talking like a fucking character of value, saying, what's this going on here? This is like a key problem that it might be like some sort of medical shit for a doctor to solve. You know why? You know why this is very interesting for Chopper? Because I believe that the immortality, I think it's something that Emu bestows upon the God's Knights. I think that's kind of established, but I believe that Emu's own immortality stems from the Ope Ope no Mi, and the Ope Ope no Mi is a fucking doctor-related fruit. It's the, I think that we could actually get some fucking thinking out of Chopper here, and that's fucking great. And then, other Straw Hats, Usopp. I know we're all waiting on shit for Usopp. I dropped a video recently literally talking about why I think Usopp stuff has not started yet. It can't start. It's a bit too early for it to start yet. It has to be post-God's Night invasion. Once they're out of here for the moment, right? That's when Usopp's shit will begin. So just stay tuned on Usopp. Keenan, thanks for the support, man. Thanks for coming through. Hope you like the chapter, man. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 32 months. This is easily the best chapter I've read in years. Looking at Scopper fold because he saw what happened to Carlin got me in a way I wasn't expecting. Yeah, that was this chapter just had everything. It had the action, great showcasing of abilities from Gaban, great emotion, right, with Rania. And then the Gaban Carlin scene was really strong. Like, this chapter alone did so much phenomenal characterization for Gaban. I love Rayleigh. I feel like Rayleigh was always like this wise sage, like this Obi-Wan Kenobi type figure. Gaban feels like a bit more of a like we're kind of getting more of him as just a man, like a person. You know what I mean? There's a bit more relatability, I guess, to Gaban in a sense. Like he's more humanized, whereas I think Rayleigh is kind of written to be, yeah, like an Obi-Wan type aura from the original trilogy. You get what I'm saying? So I'm really loving Gaban because it's hard to follow up Rayleigh because we all love Rayleigh. I think Oda's going a different route with Gaban while still making him obviously very impressive, but just going a very different angle with him. And I think this chapter did so much phenomenal characterization for him. So much phenomenal characterization for Gaban. Let's get the streamlights up to 100 real quick. Let's get the streamlights up to 100. Evil Friend, thanks for the 5. Love Emu's speech bubbles. A small detail that adds a lot to the intensity of the situation. Plus, love the Chopper focus. Chopper finally getting some fucking something is so cool. I wish I'd mentioned that in the chapter review. I fucking forgot. Emu, okay, so I'll say that the speech bubbles for Emu are really good. I don't know if that's going to stick every time. It would be cool. Emu needs to regain some aura here. Because last we saw was him fucking pooping his pants because of Joy Boy's Haki, right? So Emu needs to regain some aura here. I think it would be so sick if just like a Emu-possessed avatar, Gunkko, just fucking fucked shit up at Elbaf. The tricky thing is, again, the monster trio aren't here, and I don't think they have a way to get up there that fast, but I feel like there's no way they're not going to be able to sense it. So maybe Emu goes to town and the monster trio are like speeding their way over. I don't know. This is just a phenomenal... I love the setup because we have no idea where this is going to go. I do think that however things go, it's going to go down in a... I don't think it's going to... like. I think it's kind of clearly set, in my opinion, that this is going to be a sharp, intense, but relatively fast conclusion to the conflict because Emu's already announced there's other shit going on. So he's made it kind of clear that this is kind of like an in and out job. You know what I'm saying? So I'm interested. Very interested. Angel Rees, thanks for the 5. I don't think it's the Revolutionaries or Blackbeard. I think it's the Celestial Dragons revolting because they're fed up with the lack of food. Marines can't touch them, so Holy Knights have to. I don't think it's the Celestial Dragons revolting because they're just too weak to actually revolt. I don't think they have that gumption in them. Like, what are they revolting against even? You know what I'm saying? Like, who are they? There's nothing to really revolt against. That's an interesting idea, but it's they themselves who are the ones that are in power. Like, if you're saying they're trying to turn against Emu and the Gorosei, there's just no way that almost all the Celestial Dragons would be immediately knocked out by like a single passive burst of Conqueror's Haki from like Shamrock or Garling or something like that. Like they're just so fucking weak outside of the God's Knights, you know what I mean? I do think it's the Revolutionaries, if I had to guess. Mr. MMF2, thanks for the 20. This chapter got so many things happening. I'm wondering how many ideas you have for Tuesday's video. Didn't like the strong characters losing. I didn't like the strong character losing because hostage. I think that's what Oda had to do in this situation. I think he had to do that in this situation because, like, you can't have Gaban look bad right off the bat, so you can't just have him lose straight up to Sommers or Gunkko. This is kind of his hype moment. With Rayleigh, he didn't beat Kizaru, obviously, but that's a little bit of a different scenario because Kizaru is Kizaru, right? Like, the fact that Rayleigh, at his age, was able to hold his own against a Marine Admiral in his prime and, like, stalemate him, basically, that in itself was a ton of hype, right? With the God's Knights, they're newer, their strength is not as established, and we get the sense that while they're very strong, they're not all Admiral level strong. So if you have Gaban come in and just lose to the God's Knights, it doesn't, or like he's unable to do anything to the God's Knights, it hurts his character quite a bit because he's not up against the same challenge that Rayleigh was. So I love the way that Oda handled it this chapter, honestly, because he made Gaban look like a badass. And the thing that I really, really like is that even in the way Gaban lost, it was also actually Gaban gas because he lost because he fucking could see the future, right? So even in Oda making Gaban take an L, in doing so, the manner in which Gaban takes an L is Oda revealing that Gaban has future sight on top of the Haki that he displayed in terms of straight combat. So, like, slipping that in is like, well, I lost because my Haki's so fucking good I can see the future and I know that I'm going to lose my child. That's like hyping Gaban at the same time as finding a logical story reason for him to lose. And I think it does good things for his character. I think it presents him with like a strong, like an interesting ultimatum. And it's one that makes sense for the character, that like ultimately, as strong as his resolve is, as important as he knows this overcoming the God's Knights is for the nation of Elbaf, he is ultimately very human and sentimental, and he can't sacrifice his child for that cause. I like that. I like that for his character. I like the conflict that Oda came up with for this. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 100. Where are we at? Oh, how many ideas do I have for Tuesday's video? So here's the crazy thing. I have a ton of ideas for Tuesday's video out of this, but the one that I chose is actually one that's more character writing focused than anything, because what just happened this chapter, it's too early to jump to major theories. I'm not going to go ahead and theorize a whole shit ton of stuff about Emu or how Gunkko is possessed by Emu and stuff like that. There's some character stuff that came out of this chapter that I think is perfect to delve into. Some really pleasantly surprising character stuff this chapter. So that's what this Tuesday's video is. It's just too early to... Because I could drop a whole theory video about Emu and Gunkko and everything like that, and then within one chapter, it's just negated. So I have to kind of resist that sort of urge to go off with ideas. Let me write one quick point down, though. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. What the fuck? Yeah. Yeah, I just think there's so much that comes out of this. Like, you can speculate on who's attacking Marishua, how is Emo able to do this, what are the origins of Gunkko, a million things that you could speculate on. I think it's a little too early. I need another chapter. I need another chapter for things to come together. Otherwise, I'm just throwing things at the wall. Let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick. Jing Freaks, thanks a lot. Brook getting an actual storyline feels so good. This is all I've wanted for Brook. This is all I've wanted. Just an actual storyline. And it feels like the beautiful thing that the final saga is showing me is that Oda has always had storylines planned for the Straw Hats. Saul for Robin, right? The Atom Tree and the Ancient Laboratory for Frankie. This God's Knights connection, this Gunkko connection for Brook. All of these things were planted here, and obviously Usopp stuff in Elbaf. All of these things were planted here in Elbaf. It's just that, like... it seems like Oda didn't have ideas for what to do with the Straw Hats in the middle of the story. And if you really think back, like, think about how Oda structured the narrative of One Piece. What are the islands that we knew from the beginning Oda had in mind? We knew that he had Laugh Tale in mind because he told us that from chapter, like, 102 or 103. And we knew that he had Elbaf in mind because he told us that from, like, fucking Little Garden, right? There are clear ending parts of the story that Oda's always had planned. So the characters that he's coming up with endgame story, like, he's figuring out how do they play into these endgame arcs. He's planning that from the beginning. But what Oda has also told us is that what really got elongated is that middle section of the story. And so that's why, like, when Oda's introducing Brook, Frankie, Robin, I always had faith in this, but that faith started to wane over time. But I always had faith that he had really good things planned for these characters eventually. It's just that, like, you're waiting and waiting for so long, and it's like, why is it not happening? But the simple fact is that if Oda had Laugh Tale planned from the beginning, Elbaf planned from the beginning, as he stated, right, like he writes those arcs into the story, he says that we're going there, then as he's introducing these characters in the story, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brook, right, he is writing these characters and thinking about what to do with them in the future. Like, how do they tie the fuck out of him for that as an author? Most mangaka I don't think really do that. The simple problem is that Oda didn't really... Like, just because when he's inventing Brook, and he probably had this stuff planned for Brook from the beginning because there's tidbits to Brook's backstory from the get-go that we don't get. He's like, I was the commander of a kingdom's fleet or whatever. He says that from the beginning. Oda had no reason to write that. He could have just said that Brook started off as a pirate or whatever, or Brook just became a pirate. But he chose to say, he knew from the beginning that that's what Brook's storyline is going to be, right? There's even foreshadowing from Thriller Bark that this stuff that we're getting right now in Elbaf is, like, outside of that one quote, this is stuff that Oda's been planning from the beginning, okay? So that's where his biggest strength is. Like, Oda did have stuff in mind for the Straw Hats. It's just that the middle section, or the 2/3 section part of the story, where it's like Oda's coming up with arcs that he probably didn't have in mind from the very beginning of the story, like a Dressrosa, right? Like a Punk Hazard, right? You can just read in interviews and shit, and it's clear that those are arcs that Oda came up on the spot. Punk Hazard was supposed to be 2 separate arcs, like a Fire Island and Ice Island, and his editors made him combine it. Greenbit and Dressrosa were supposed to be separate arcs. Like, there's a lot of, like, if Elbaf, Laughtail, the endgame shit, that is stuff that Oda has thought out meticulously from the beginning, and every time he's introducing a new Straw Hat, he's thinking about what their storylines will be for those arcs down the line. Then the total reverse is like all the fucking islands that we got probably from post-Fishman Island through, I don't know, Wano, which is just like island, like storylines that he probably came up with as One Piece was extending, right? I know Oda said that it's the Shichibukai that really extended the story, so that would be arguably the Grand Line section, but at least during that section, Oda was able to very elegantly figure out, like, what am I doing with my existing strats? What am I doing with the newer strats that are fitting in? And what's the end game going to be for all of these characters, right? I think the story really ballooned post-time skip, and it became, like, arc after arc of side character focus, and Oda did not have plans for, like, what the fuck he's going to do with Robin in Dressrosa. He did not have plans of what the fuck he's going to do with Brook in Wano. He wasn't thinking about that when he introduced Brook as a character, right? But the storylines that he planned from the beginning, and I know I'm a broken record at this point, but I'm just saying, like, there's a reason that Elbaf is this arc where it seems like suddenly so many character plot lines and potential character arcs are opening up for all of these Strats that have felt somewhat neglected for so long. It's because these are the storylines that Oda's probably thought the most in-depth about, and these are the storylines that he always knew would be the concluding storylines of the story. Laughtail and Elbaf, those are the first 2 storylines that Oda says, we are getting there one day. And he said that very, very early in the story. And after that, that wasn't really a thing for the rest of the Grand Line. It wasn't until we started, like, getting several hundred chapters down that Oda started giving us some new milestones that are coming up. He said, okay, we're going to get to Fishman Island. We're going to get to Wano Country. That's when he started introducing some more, like, down-the-line story arcs. But Laughtail and Elbaf, those are the ones that from the beginning, he had those in mind, and he's always probably been writing around those. And in other interviews, he says that it's really the final arc of One Piece that he's most interested in writing. So that's what I'm very happy about here. I think, like, all of the setups, like, it's, you could say, like, finally we're getting an arc for Brook, but it's almost like the reverse. It's kind of like, we were always supposed to get this stuff for the Brook. We're always supposed to get stuff for Robin, for Frankie, for Usopp, even for Chopper probably. It's just that there was this void century period of One Piece where Oda's imagination just strayed to other stories, more side character-based arcs, stuff like that. And that's when we get, like, the 2/3 section, the second, the like, I don't know, the, what do you call, like, I guess the second act of the story, if you want to call One Piece a 3-act thing, with East Blue being a prologue. Let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick, because the arc is really, really fucking good. Mr. NK, thanks a lot for being a Yonko tier member for 19 months, man. Thanks for the long time support. Okay, so Gunkko is Yorkie's kid, right? I don't fucking know. Maybe. I think I'm really, all I know is that I'm very excited to see how things go. I saw on Twitter some people saying that in Japanese, the way that Gunkko speaks seems to suggest that she, her father is royalty, so she's a princess or something like that. I don't know. Oh, are there mic issues? There shouldn't be mic issues. Hello, testing. Hello? It seems like it's fine. Tala, thanks for the 2. Usopp will get gas, but this won't be his Whole Cake Island, in my opinion. I mean, I think that this arc will be important for him. And I explained a lot of why that seemed to be the case in, again, if you just go check out my recent video talking about how, like, the Strats are all set up to get significant or, like, most of the Strats are set up to get significant character arcs in Elbaf, and I covered Usopp's in particular. I think for Usopp, because I do believe at this point that a lot of Usopp's growth in Elbaf is going to be related to him realizing that he is already a brave warrior of the sea and that he actually needs to help instill some bravery into the giants of Elbaf, right? I think because that's likely going to be the arc for him, I imagine. Oda had to have Usopp keep talking and talking and talking about how much he's looking forward to Elbaf more than any of the other Strats, because this whole concept of Usopp like kind of getting to the end of the yellow brick road and realizing I had courage all along only works if he's talking up how he's gonna get courage once he arrives at the Emerald City over and over. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. Some TCB mistranslations in Emu's dialogue. Ooh. He asks what's taking so long. We need assistance. So he's saying that at back there they need assistance. That's interesting. Well, then why the fuck isn't he doing shit up back there? That's very interesting. If Emu can fight, I'm just curious why he's not just like cleaning house up there at Marijua. Thanks for the clarification, Akash. Also, thanks. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Last panel, Emu uses the same verb, shihai, to rule that Luffy used when he told Rayleigh that he will not rule over anything. Two contrasting gods. Ooh, that's really interesting. That's very, very interesting. I wish I knew Japanese sometimes. Sometimes I wish I didn't know. It's complicated. There's sometimes that I'm like, I'm glad that I don't actually know exactly what's being said here. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's come up a few times. Ignorant Weed, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 20 months, man. Dragon versus Akainu in Holy Land is possible. Oh, fuck. Did Akainu set everything on fire? Elbaf is Arc of Fathers. I agree. Elbaf, big theme of fatherhood. Loki and his father. Hadruden and his father. Obviously Colin and his father. I believe that with Shanks showing up, Luffy already implied that he views Shanks as his father figure because he told Nami that he compared what Bellemere is to Nami to what Shanks is to him, implying that Luffy views Shanks as his father figure. And then knowing that Elbaf is likely going to be important for Usopp, we've got Usopp and Yasop once the Red-Haired Pirates arrive. Gunkko is becoming one of the best characters in One Piece. Oh, yeah. Let's do some quick... Hold on. Let me put this on the side. Hold on. Here we go. We're going to do some quick Elbaf character rankings on the side over here. All right. I'll just open this up. What the fuck? Oh my god, I gotta add this shit again. This is fucking stupid. This is fucking stupid. All right. Does this still work? Yeah, this still works. All right. Here we go. Yeah, I'll just rearrange this in a second. Give me a second here. I might be dropping Loki. But a lot of this is recency bias, because I'm still more excited about Loki than I am with Scopper Gaban. But I think Scopper moved up. Okay, Akash Panda, thanks for the 2. Further proves that Future Sight is used for dramatic scenes. I am so fucking excited for the scene. I am confident. I believe this for a long time. I genuinely, truly believe that Oda invented the whole concept of Future Sight. I think he invented it as an idea, period, because, like a work backwards sort of thing, I believe Oda thought that it would be really fucking dramatic to have a scene where Luffy sees his crewmates being killed, the same way that we saw Colin being killed. I think that would be a really powerful scene, and that leads to an explosion of Conqueror's Haki for Luffy, and that's likely what his final Haki bloom is going to be. I actually did a full video on that. I said Shanks is the final key. Shanks showed us the final key to Conqueror's Haki. I did that a while back. I really believe that Oda, because if you look at Luffy's Conqueror's Haki blooms pre-time skip, and even Ace's Conqueror's Haki bloom pre-time skip, the strongest blooms, and even with Roger, right? It's stated that like Ace has his Conqueror's Haki bloom when he's trying to protect Luffy because he thinks Luffy's about to die, right? Luffy has his Conqueror's Haki blooms in Amazon Lily and Marineford when 1, he thinks Marguerite's gonna die, then 2, he thinks Ace is gonna die. Like, it's just really strong dramatic effect. And like, when you see somebody that you care about to die, that leads to a Conqueror's Haki bloom, like, right? And then on top of that, we have the concept that Roger, he was apparently at his strongest when his crew's lives were threatened. So to me, it's all building towards this idea that, and then finally fucking Shanks, he has that big scene where he sees Kid offing his crew and everything, and then Shanks just whips out Divine Departure. To me, everything is building towards Luffy having his final Conqueror's Haki bloom via seeing a scene where his crew is dying. I think that is what is going to happen. I would guess at the hands of Blackbeard. I think that would be really cool. And I think that's when he's going to get his final Conqueror's Haki bloom. Because if you look at some of the scenes where Conqueror's Haki is awakened, like a key word is stop. Like Ace, I believe, yells stop. I might be wrong, but I think he yells stop when Luffy's about to be killed when they're children, and that's when his Conqueror's Haki explodes. Luffy is yelling stop when they're trying to kill Marguerite. I believe it's the same thing again with Ace, when Ace is about to die. Luffy has the Marineford Conqueror's Haki explosion. And I think it was the same even with Bon Clay in Impel Down when Luffy, I think, exploded with Conqueror's Haki there. So, like, there is a certain power. Oda likes writing those scenes where Luffy's Conqueror's Haki comes rushing out when somebody is in danger. And I think Oda kind of the most traumatic scene for Luffy outside of Ace's own death was the Straw Hats being disappeared at Sabaody, right? Luffy having to watch all of them being pseudo-killed. Not actually killed, but being vanished in front of his eyes, right? It's something that gives the sense of death without actually killing them, right? And that was when Luffy was at his most helpless. I would love to have a scene where Luffy is seeing the future and seeing his crew picked off one by one, a la Sabaody, but in this case, they're being killed one by one. And that is what leads to Luffy yelling, like, stop one last time, and that's his final Conqueror's Haki bloom, and that's when he becomes the fully actualized version of himself. That's when he reaches the final level of Conqueror's Haki. I really believe that that's why Oda created the concept of Future Sight. Because guess what? There is no fucking reason to write Future Sight into the story. I guess for, like, Madame Charlie's predictions and stuff. But, like, when Future Sight was first introduced, it was just, like, a confusing thing to people because a lot of people already were under the impression that that's what Observation Haki already did. And then Oda went out of his way to explain that, no, that's not what it does. If you want to see visions, that's a whole other thing. So seeing a whole extended vision, that's Future Sight, and that's a new category, and Luffy's going to learn that, and Luffy's going to learn to see the future. You know how Future Sight is almost never fucking used in battle? It's because I don't think Oda invented it as an ability to really try and think of creative ways to use it in battle. Like, even once Luffy and Katakuri both had Future Sight down, the following fight with Snake Man Luffy versus Katakuri, with both of them seeing the future, was pretty much fucking identical to a fight between two people who aren't fucking seeing the future. It's just a fucking brawl. So I don't think Oda came up with that concept as, like, a cool way to mix up fights. Like, it's been used so far in, like, a novelty sort of way. Like, Kaido suddenly remembers for, like, 2 panels that he should be using Future Sight, and he does. I really believe that I think Oda thinks of dramatic scenes first and foremost. I think he's, like, an author. Like, there's a reason One Piece has so many profound dramatic moments. I think Oda thinks of these sort of really dramatic final moments. And that's, like, one of his biggest strengths. Thinking of really profoundly, vividly memorable, gut punch sort of dramatic moments and scenes. And then he sets the plot up to lead up to those. I think that's one of the reasons that Oda's, like, so effective at eliciting emotions. But then sometimes, like, he doesn't seem like the most logical writer in terms of his setups, and it seems like he kind of does some illogical things to get to a really cool moment, because that's not his forte necessarily. His forte is thinking of, oh, wouldn't it be really cool or emotionally powerful if this happened? And then he kind of, like jerry-rigs the story to kind of set that up in a way. So, like, that's why people sometimes have problems with Oda's logic of setting certain things up, and they're like, this was kind of dumb and required lots of stupid character actions to lead to it, but the concluding moment is often very, very powerful. Like I remember people talking about, like why didn't they take Odin's swords from him when they captured him? Like, Kaido defeats Odin, or, like, Odin's defeated or whatever, and it's like, why didn't they take his swords from him? Why did he break out or whatever? And it's like, don't mind that. Check out this cool scene of Odin holding the scabbards while boiling, and then that's what sticks in readers' heads, you know? Anyway, long story short, I strongly believe that that's what Future Sight is for. I think Oda thought it would be a really powerful scene of Luffy seeing the Straw Hats being picked off one by one, much like the Sabaody incident, except this time, in reverse of the Sabaody incident, Luffy's been able to make that stop via his Conqueror's Haki reaching its peak. I think that is something that's very likely to come down the line. Alejandro Ramirez, thanks a lot. Usopp's arc BTW. Guys, just wait for Usopp. Just wait for Usopp. It's gonna get there. I've explained in recent videos why Usopp's arc is something that likely can only happen after the God's Knight's invasion. Right now, let the other Straws get their setups. This is the time for them all to get their setups. They're getting their setups one by one, right? Literally, the way this arc has been going, in the span of a given chapter, a whole new storyline can open up for a Straw Hat, right? Because we had Robin first with her setup, then Frankie started getting some setups with like the Atom Tree and the Ancient Laboratory, and then out of the blue, this fucking chapter, suddenly Brook has like a major story setup for the arc, right? Like in the span of one chapter turnaround, suddenly Brook is like seeming like maybe the most fucking important character in Elbaf. Even Chopper gets a little bit of a setup here. So just wait, like all it takes is one chapter for that angle to open up. We know Elbaf is supposed to be an important arc for Usopp. It's likely something that Oda is going to drop the setup for in a little bit. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. I was going to rearrange this. Hold on. I'm moving Scopper up to 1. I think Scopper is my favorite character here now. This chapter did wonders for him. I'm going to move Gunkko up here. I'm going to move Gunkko up there. She's a very interesting character. I still think I'm more interested in Loki. It's not about interest. I think Loki, maybe Gunko's number 2, but I feel like that's recency bias because like Loki's so cool and he's very interesting himself. Sommers, Ripley. I'm liking Jarl a lot now. I'm liking Jarl a lot. These others don't really change. Oh, Rania. Yeah, let's move Rania up. Put Rania here. I think the Walrus Principal guy's been a solid. He hasn't really done anything, but you know what? He's just cool. Why is he a walrus? Huh? Doesn't even make sense. Rest of them don't matter. That's my new ranking. Scopper, Gaban. My recency bias wants me to put Gunkko at number 2, but it's like I just read the chapter. That's why I've got her there. Okay. Back to the comments. El Aichi Muhammad, thanks for the 5. Emu will drop the children and take Jinbei instead to put down the fire in Marijua. I don't think Jinbei can just generate water, but that's an interesting idea. Stormfox, thanks for the 2. Can we stop theorizing everyone is a clone now? The Ginny clone theory died right there. But at the same time, the everyone is a clone, like, it's hard to not do that when clones are now very rampant in the story. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to not do that, but if Gunko's a totally new character, which is what it seems like I'm all for that. This seems like a really, really interesting storyline. Stormfox, thanks for the 2. Bonnie is Wano Carrot 2.0, no Ginny clone. Yeah, no Ginny clone. That's okay. That's okay. The storyline that Oda seems to have set up here, it still seems really, really dramatic. I was very excited at the dramatic potential of what we were getting there. But it seems like we've got a ton of dramatic potential here as well. And I think I will take the fact that it seems like it's Brook set up too. And that's like what do you call? A nice way to balance it out, if that makes sense. It's like I got very little sleep last night, so I'm forgetting the word for it. It's a nice consolation prize, I guess is the word. Consolation prize makes it sound like it's a negative. I think I'm almost happier that it's a setup for major Brook storytelling than like connecting back to things that we already have for our main characters than like a Bonnie setup. Although it does make me wonder what Bonnie's future in the story really is at this point. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Oda not watching One Piece theories anymore. Thoughts? I think he always said that he doesn't I don't think that's new. I think Oda's always said that he tries not to keep up with One Piece theories. And if he did keep up with One Piece theories, it would just be like Japanese theories and stuff, right? Let's get stream likes up to 200 real quick. Nerve AMV Maker, thanks for the 5. Do you think we're going to get an outside world chapter? If the Revolutionaries are attacking the Holy Land, I want to know what Cross Guild is doing. So I personally feel like the flow that we're going to get is this scene is going to conclude. I think this is actually something I talked about. Literally, go back a couple streams. Maybe it was last stream. Maybe it was 2 streams ago. I drew out kind of what I believe the Elbaf arc structure would be like. The short version of it is here. You want me to draw it again? I can draw it again. Let me draw it again. I'll draw the short version. All right. Here we go. I just like drawing with Microsoft Paint. I feel like it adds character. to our stream. Here we go. This is the intro part. I think I'll leave out the text. This is the intro, okay? So we arrive in Elbaf. We do boring shit in Legoland. And then we get the setup phase. So Legoland ends right here, okay? We exit Legoland. We had this little mini arc in Legoland. Legoland lame. We leave. This is the section of the arc that we're getting context, setup, yada, 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 yada. We're meeting the cast of characters. We meet Loki. We meet Colin. We meet Ripley. We meet Gaban. We meet all these characters. We meet Yarrow. This is where we're getting the lay of the land. Here's what Elbaf's about. We're meeting the villains. We're meeting Shamrock. We're meeting Gunkko, right? All the major characters here. Then our first big incident. Our first big inciting incident, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Big inciting incident, like, big conflict. That's what we're in the middle of right now. God's Knights, okay? What this leads to, in my opinion, next is, so I think that this will ultimately lead to some sense of defeat for the protagonist. So some sense of defeat. We're already kind of getting that. Like, the chapter literally concludes with Gaban, the savior, falling from... the Straughts are all defeated. Gaban, the savior, Wait, am I screen sharing? Yeah, I'm screen sharing. Gaban, the savior, falling from the tree down to the underworld below, right? Very symbolic, yada, yada. The fate of Elbaf, hanging on a precipice, much like Rania. The library, school, all that shit burning. Good shit. It's just the monster trio that are chilling down below. I wish Oda could have found a way to get the monster trio involved in this and make them feel some pain too. Maybe that happens in the near future. I don't know. But anyway, this creates the low point. The low point, small note, low point, crucial for drama, missing from Wano. Crucial for drama, missing from Wano, okay? The reason this low point is so important is because this is going to set up a period of character growth. But before we get to character growth, I think what's going to happen next, so I think this is going to set up negative shit for the characters, right? So, like, all the characters are left in a negative emotional state. You want characters in a negative emotional state because that is where dramatic storytelling can come from, okay? So you want characters in a negative emotional state. This will lead to characters feeling bummed out. Strahd's feeling bummed out. God knows the Giants of Elbaf will feel bummed out. Gaban will feel bummed out. Everyone bummed out. Maybe not the monster trio because they're down below. Loki already bummed out. He's been shitting in a tree hole for like the last 6 years, right? So this is good. I think during this period of time, we're going to first cut away to outside world stuff. Wait, I'm not writing text. Cut away to outside world stuff. So that'll give us a nice, like, maybe some excitement there or whatever. And then I think we'll cut back to Elbaf for, character writing. Good section of character writing. This is where character writing can take place. Character writing. Let's learn about Loki and Harold. Let's learn about fucking Brook and Gunkko shit. Let's see what Usopp's character arc can actually be. Let's see what Frankie does with the Atom Tree. Let's see how Robin's feeling after all of this stuff, you know? This is where good character writing stuff comes in. And then if you kind of remember, so like quick example, like Egghead Island, we got stuff at Egghead. Then Oda kind of set up the outside world stuff. So he sets up that there's some stuff going on in Hachinosu. He sets up that there's some stuff going on with like Shanks and stuff. Then we're back to Egghead for a while. Okay, we're staying back at Egghead. And then Oda cuts back to the outside world to resolve that stuff. Okay, so I think here we're going to get some setup for some outside world stuff. Then Oda's going to cut back to Elbaf. This paces things out nicely, so we get some excitement. We get back to Elbaf so that we can get some character writing. Then I think Oda cuts back to conclude the outside world stuff. So much like the Hachinosu raid concluded, then the Reverie stuff concluded, yada yada. And then finally, we cut back to Egghead Island, remember? And then we had the climax of that arc because the character writing setup was there. So I think in the same way, then after the outside world stuff concludes, some of that will likely connect back to Elbaf. And then here we go to Elbaf's final battle. Yay, big final battle. All right? I think that's generally kind of... I don't really know how I define the peaks and valleys or whatever. It's just, it's whatever. Okay, don't think too much about that. But I kind of think that after this, we're going to leave the protagonist in a low point. I think we're going to cut over to exciting outside world stuff. Then once Oda's given us our fill of exciting outside world shit, we'll cut back to Elbaf for some good-ass character writing. And then just when we were getting bored of character writing, because like that's usually the slowest section of the arc, then we'll cut back to conclude the outside world stuff, give us some exciting shit, and then we'll cut back to Elbaf to give the payoff for all of the character writing setup from early on and conclude the arc. I think that's the general flow. Who knows? It might not be like that. Maybe Oda just blue balls us and doesn't give us any outside world shit, but this is what it feels like it's heading towards. We'll see. Okay. Where we at? Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on supers. Hold on. Okay, Knut Worgen, thanks for the 2. Gonna lose it if Gunkko doesn't wear pants for Brook. What? Oh man, that'd actually be crazy. Gunkko was a child when she knew Brook though, so I think this would be weird. Maybe that's actually even why Oda had Gunkko, and he didn't have Brook sexualize Gunkko at all, because maybe that's just Oda's way of kind of keeping things a little wholesome in whatever Oda way that he can. With this 90-year-old skeleton who asks like every young woman to see their panties. English 1D1, thanks for the 10. I feel like Brook's music reaching the soul is going to come in heavy play here with Gunkko. I feel like the second third of the story will blossom in the final war when the side characters come back, not gonna lie. Yeah, the music reaching the soul, so that's actually a big part of next Tuesday's video. So watch out for next Tuesday's video, because I go into that shit a lot. Yeah, next Tuesday's video is going to be really, really big on that. How to explain this? I'm trying not to give away too much of what next Tuesday's video is about, but it does cover a lot of Brook in what he seems set up to represent and the role he's set to play in this arc. The second third of the story will blossom in the final war when the side characters come back, not gonna lie. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like the part of the story where we really focus on the side characters, I agree. I do agree. I don't think that's all for nothing, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if like we hit the final war. I think a lot of the characters that are going to be the most important in the final war are characters that were already important for a long time. Like we saw Aokiji, Kobe, like the characters in that big spread. Whereas the second third of the story, I feel like introduced a bunch of characters that like fucking Nine Scabbards and Shinobu and like fucking how many Coliseum fight? I don't know. Like I do feel like there's something to be said that maybe focusing on the main characters during that period of time could have done the story some good as well. But let's see what the payoff is. So let's be patient and see what the payoff is. Grizzly Adams, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 21 months. Gunkko was the princess of Brook's home kingdom, but she was taken to be a celestial dragon's wife many years ago, and presumably was made a god's knight and given immortality. Kingdom possibly destroyed. I do believe the kingdom might have been destroyed, because it's like, why did Brook, like, what happened with Brook leaving that convoy, or leaving that kingdom? And I did read that there is some indication based on her language in Japanese that seems to suggest that her father was nobility or something, so she would be a princess. So I do believe that she may have been the princess of that kingdom. Kind of like Pell was like this mentor or like guardian figure to Vivi. It's possible that Brook was that to Gunkko. And so we might be seeing that sort of dynamic, and the kingdom may have been destroyed. Brook has probably lived through a lot of trauma and hardship throughout his life. We're getting like a lot of people already feel like Brook has the saddest backstory in the Strats. This might be taking it to another level yet again. Rayan Azar, thanks to the 5. Usopp making Emu believe one of his lies, incoming trust. That would be really fucking funny. If it's like, we've got another, if Usopp's like, we've got another Haki knot, we've got another Joy Boy knot, we're gonna break it out and Emu runs away. That'd be funny. Damian Wright, thanks for the 5. What you talked about last chapter stream with the agenda piece on Twitter was worse this week. People can't even enjoy a character who's really cool. That's what's so frustrating, man, because it's like, if Scopper Gaban was never, like, let's just say he was a dude, right? Like, or established to be some legendary pirate, or let's say he was like just some pirate from Rox's crew, right? Everybody would be on board with enjoying this character. It's so bizarre because, like, I think no matter what Gaban would have done this chapter, there's a certain faction of fans that I think would have just like used it to shit on him. It's like, this character had a, like, he's an interesting character. He had a really good, he got a little bit of everything here. He got good action scene, cool personality, he showcased future sight, like a lot of that stuff, like a lot of the cool stuff, but then also the emotion, like him being genuinely torn about choosing between Elbaf and his son, and then trying to take the risk regardless, but then seeing the future and realizing that he just doesn't have it in him to lose his son over this, and then having to surrender in this way, and then literally falling down to the underworld. Like, this is really great character writing for this character. If he wasn't a Sanji analog, like if Oda never said that this is the left hand of the Pirate King, if he was never even written to be on Roger's crew, if this was just some character from Rox's crew, or if it was like some character just in general from that era or whatever, some legendary pirate from that era, nobody would be shitting on him like this. Like, it's just really fucking bizarre. It's really fucking shitty. It's purely because of insecurity as to what this means for Sanji. Like, that's literally the only reason, and it's fucking sad. It's just, this is so, because again, I'm all for the idea of like agenda piece to some degree. Like, it's fun. It's fun to have these debates and talk shit and be like, you know, Shanks, Mihawk, you know, like Sabo or Morley, you know, like these debates about which character might be stronger. Those are all fun, right? So, Zoro Sanji, that's always going to be a classic, right? Fans are always going to be like, Zoro's always portrayed as like right up there with Luffy. Sanji fans are going to always argue that like Zoro and Sanji are the ones who are supposed to be equals, right? That's always going to be a thing. But this is just crazy because like this isn't Sanji. It's its own character. It's like a different character. It's just like they only read it as though it's Sanji, and it's just like you are unable to actually enjoy just straight up a cool character with cool character writing and like a well-written emotional character arc, like little snippet for him in this chapter, because you're just obsessed with the notion that this is Sanji, and then that threatens the concept of like the fucking the fucking sword god idol that you all worship. It's crazy. I don't even know. It's just like, it's not even Sanji. It's a fucking different character. It's just a different character everyone would be thinking is a fucking cool ass character. I think Gaban would be like exploding in popularity across the entire community right now, if not for the fact that like one group of people can't even view him as his own character and just view him as Sanji, like a Sanji with an alternate skin or something like that. They don't even have the same fucking personality. They're different fucking personalities. They do have like that same sort of I think more emotion, love-based slant to them, right? And we kind of saw that even this arc with like Gaban not being able to sacrifice his son. But that's it. Personality-wise, they're very different. It's kind of like how Rayleigh and Zoro have soft personality similarities, but ultimately I would say they're fairly different as characters. Anyway. The Final Storm, thanks for the 5. 10 out of 10 chapters, so much amazing content. But some people still power scaling Gaban versus Rayleigh. 11 chapters straight, shake my head. Brook, Frankie, Robin, Chopper. Yeah, it's just like, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Let Zoro and Sanji have their own stories, you know? These characters are obviously parallels to Zoro and Sanji, right? But Zoro and Sanji are going to have their own stories and their own journeys, you know? They have their own abilities that are different from these characters' abilities. Frankly, if this chapter showcased anything, it's that it's not just Sanji that's slacking in the Haki department. Zoro is slacking too. Can we get my boy some future sight? Can he like learn how to see shit past the current present moment? It's like fucking anybody who's anybody. You think Mihawk doesn't have future sight? Of course Mihawk has future sight. Zoro's gonna go in there like a fucking dodo, just seeing whatever the fuck's in front of him while Mihawk's seeing 10 steps ahead. What the fuck is Zoro gonna do? Like, at this point, I assume Rayleigh had future sight as well. Meaning that, like, the Pirate King's trio, they were all just Haki experts, right? Zoro, at the moment, he's one-tricking. He's just one-trick. He's a I cut hard type of guy. No, you gotta be smarter than that, right? He's got to get his observation Haki up. I hope he does that this arc. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think if you're a Zoro fan, you just got no business shitting on Gaban, because it's like, your boy can't even see the future. He just sees what's happening right now. Like an idiot. I don't know. Okay, continuing on. Mr. NK, thanks for the 2. Not gonna lie, Elbaf turning out to be the arc I thought Wano would be. Yeah. Fucking, like, Straw Hat focus? Yes. Actual drama and tension that affects the Straw Hats? Yes. Like, side characters that we're actually fucking excited about? Like, to me, Wano had 50 different side characters, and like 1 or 2 were good. Momonosuke, I like Kinemon by the end, personally. And that's it. That's a wrap. Elbaf has like a handful of side characters, and it turns out that's all you need. Loki, quality over quantity. Loki, already shaping up to be a phenomenal character. Gaban, one of the most exciting character introductions that we've had in a long, long time. Colin, already a very likable character, right? So many, Gunkko, like, it seems like she has got some actual depth to her, like a story arc that we really, really want to explore, right? Quality over quantity. I don't know. Let's see. Son, thanks for the 5. Gaban saying, this is a treasure of a lifetime at Colin's birth. After seeing the world and finding One Piece's peak, 11 out of 10, goated character. Yeah, he's just a phenomenal character. I'm just joking about Zoro, by the way. Okay, I believe that he will get Future Sight. I think it'd be really weird if he doesn't. There is an interesting other possibility, which is like Shanks is the killer of observation haki, right? Maybe Zoro gets an ability like that. Because if you get that, then you don't really need Future Sight, right? As long as you can cancel out other people's. But he needs something, right? He can't just be going to the end of the story and just not being able to see the future, right? I don't know. I mean, because it would be kind of crazy because Zoro was the first Straw Hat to, at least based on what's implied in terms of language and what we saw in Alabasta, he's the first Straw Hat that is implied to have used armament haki, right? He's the first Straw Hat that, in that same scene against Mr. One, seemingly was the first Straw Hat to use observation haki, right? So I don't feel like it's out of the question that Zoro should be able to become very capable at observation haki as well. Because he did tap into something similar to that, you know? Dick So Small, I pissed on my balls. Thanks for the 5. I've convinced myself that Gunkko will sacrifice herself in a face turn and that Usopp will eat her fruit. Oh shit, that'd be crazy. That fruit would be amazing for Usopp. Oh my god, that fruit would be fucking amazing for Usopp. I don't know if I want Usopp to have a fruit because at the end of the day, like, I think I've always liked the idea that Usopp really is just a dude with the bare minimum tools that's able to figure out a way. And Gunkko's fruit is a very, very strong fruit. It's a very, very strong fruit. I like the idea of Usopp just getting better at using what he has, especially because Usopp has a power-up that Oda hasn't tapped into. Usopp has observation haki. Oda just hasn't had him learn how to use it in combat yet. So it's just like, you know, I don't see the need for the fruit, but I could see Gunkko dying, that's for sure. The Final Storm, thanks for the 5. Teaches moment to bargain with Emu by fixing Marisha's issues. I definitely agree with that. I've done videos on that. That's definitely my belief regard. I think maybe Revolutionaries are attacking Marisha. I think Blackbeard Pirates step in to help. Also, joke, Kid damned punk Marisha because he saw Shamrock as Shanks' 3 billion bounty. I fucking forget about Kid, man. If Kid, I don't know. Let me do a little poll. I think I've done this poll before, but like, let me see. Is Kid coming back in Elbaf? Coming back. He's out of the story. The Final Storm, thanks for the 5. Always in the belief that Elbaf is the Water 7 I see of the Final Saga. There will be in any lobby equals Mosa, Arnott, Lab, Loki, Harold, Usopp, be patient, let Oda cook. I see what you're saying. There's a lot going on there. But at the same time, I mean, Elbaf is almost kind of like a Water 7 in terms of structure, right? Like a big towering structure that goes high. Nah, not really. I'm stretching there. Although parallels, right? Like fucking Adam Tree Wood, shit like that. I think that'd be really cool if Elbaf is kind of like a Water 7. But I feel like I can't imagine like all of Elbaf just being destroyed right now. So I feel like the God's Knights will leave and then return. And I think that is a storyline that's going to happen probably, right? It's really hard to say if this is supposed to end with like a big victorious battle for the Straw Hats or if it's like Elbaf just ends up going down and they have to escape and then that leads into the events of the Final War. But yeah, Oda's left a whole bunch of mysterious threads here in Elbaf. Mosa, what Louis Arnott said, the Ancient Lab, yeah, Loki and Harold, obviously Usopp, yeah. Akash Panda, thanks for the 10, man. Thanks for the support. We can get that scene of Luffy's Conqueror's Haki growth this arc because of Emu, so we can get the Shanks reunion later this arc. The Blackbeard fight later on could be controlling that Haki in battle. I don't know. Maybe. I think it's most dramatic if Luffy has that development in his battle with Blackbeard, just because I don't think Luffy will necessarily be. I don't think Luffy has to have equal Conqueror's Haki to Shanks when they meet. I feel like Luffy will have his moment of surpassing Shanks' Conqueror's Haki during the Blackbeard battle, because I kind of imagine. I think Luffy and Shanks will be close to equal when they meet, right? But Luffy's also got the Gear 5th, like, Nika fruit, right? It's the same way that Luffy's Haki wasn't on par with Kaido's by the end of their fight, but Luffy was still able to match and ultimately overpower him in the final clash, right? I feel like with Shanks, the thing is that Haki's the only thing he's got. So if Luffy's also got Haki that's equal to him, then at that point, Luffy's just stronger than him by a good margin, right? I feel like, to me, the sequence of events is probably going to be something like Shanks loses to Blackbeard, Luffy faces Blackbeard, ultimately Luffy needs to improve his Haki past even Shanks' level to defeat Blackbeard. Luffy gets a Haki Bloom against Blackbeard. I think Haki Bloom in the midst of like an actual significant battle that Luffy needs to win is the most dramatic. I mean, kind of like how he got against Kaido and everything. Same with like he got Awakening against Kaido. It's just more dramatic when it happens in the battle itself. Morge sold me Fent. Thanks for the 2. Who's the better character, Scopper or Rayleigh? I think Rayleigh is still my I like Rayleigh more because just simply put, we've had Rayleigh for longer. He casts a larger shadow over the story. My favorite character introduction in the story to this day, by the way, is still Silver's Rayleigh. I think Kaido's is the best introduction in terms of like just concept execution. One of the coolest introductions in storytelling. Like Kaido's introduction is like a masterclass in how to introduce a character, right? But Rayleigh's just strikes a certain chord with me personally because the awe factor and shock factor, it broke my brain to read the text right hand of the Pirate King, like former Roger Pirate's vice captain, right hand of the Pirate King. It just broke my mind to realize that such a character that we're getting, like the Roger stuff was just always so sacred in the story. It's like untouched. We don't ever like touch the stuff that's going on with Roger, right? That's just like a myth, basically. And then suddenly it's like the myth is brought to life in a way that also humanizes the Roger Pirates. And then like you understand who you're looking at. You're looking at Roger's Zoro. And it just gives so much context and makes you so fucking excited for this character because it feels like a legend that you've just been hearing about that you thought that you would never really like get to pull the cover back to kind of find out more about. Like it's turning into reality. It was just so exciting at the time. It was exciting because it's like a character that we simultaneously never really thought about existing, but at the same time, when his existence was revealed, it just has so much impact. It's like not a character that you're ever looking forward to or expecting, but the moment he is introduced, it has, like, you understand everything that comes with that in that same moment. It's just a very cool feeling, the way that was introduced. So from the get-go, Rayleigh was always a very exciting character. And we just spent so much time with Rayleigh. Obviously, the Sabaody scene. I still think Rayleigh versus Kizaru is more exciting than, like, Scopper versus Sommers. Although Scopper also got to, like, take on Luffy and Zoro and everything like that. So Scopper's gotten a few scenes in the flow of this. But yeah, with Rayleigh, it's just he's more of a mainstay in the story. He's been more of a thing in the story. So I have more long-term attachment to the character of Rayleigh. But Scopper, I think, is right off of this chapter, he feels more like a character, right? Like there's more of a human level to his character. I said this earlier in the stream, but Rayleigh always felt like an Obi-Wan Kenobi type, like, or Gandalf type sage-like figure, right? Scopper, in this chapter, we just got so much meat in terms of like emotion and actual like humanizing him, making him feel like a real person. Gaban's personality is also just so much more fun than Rayleigh's. I like that they're kind of contrasts in that sense. I feel like if we'd gotten Gaban first and had him for a longer period of time, I may have liked him better than Rayleigh as a character. I might have found Rayleigh somewhat boring in terms of personality if we'd gotten him after Gaban. But Rayleigh's just been a thing longer, so I think I still have more personal attachment to Rayleigh, but I could see that changing by the end of the arc. I think Gaban's going to continue to play a big role over the course of this arc. Continuing on. Let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick. Where are we at? Ryan Azar, thanks for the 5. Just remember today's Carrot's birthday. Perfect time to reiterate that Carrot should have been a Stride over Unc Limbe. Look, in my opinion, neither of them. I think that we were good with the Stride crew after the first half of the Grand Line. That's just my personal opinion. I think we got everybody that we needed to get. I think we kind of hit a point of diminishing returns in terms of the Strides, personally. But that's just a me thing. I think that it is very rare that I feel like Jinbei adds something special to the dynamic and isn't just another talking head in the scene, personally. Yeah, that might just be me, though. Continuing on. Tom, what's up, man? Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 32 months. Also, congrats on winning the... well, you're already a mod, so you don't need this, but congrats on winning the predictions contest. You're shouted out as a predictions winner. Hey, Morge, insane chapter, but I can't stay in stream because I'm gaming and it's hard to focus on both. Thanks for the content. Also, camera looks whack right now. It's more zoomed in. Wait, why does it look whack? So something's wrong with the setting. It's also brighter, but I don't know how to fix that because nothing is different in terms of my room setup. It looks like I'm like bathed in sun right now, and it's not even that bright outside anymore. So something changed with the setup, so it's more zoomed in. I basically need to ask my editor questions about how to fix this. Reverseek, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 3 months. Do you think Emu has some other type of Haki that we haven't seen? Chapter 1150 is about to be insane. I think that the 3 types of Haki that we've been told about, Conquerors, Armament, and Observation, are the 3 types of Haki. I think that is not something that's going to change, but I think that like we can get more and more advanced uses, and I think that's something that will develop as the story goes on. So I don't... I think Emu might showcase a new usage. And yeah, Chapter 1150 is going to be fucking one of the craziest One Piece chapters ever. It's fitting that Oda, like, on a nice round number, 1150, that's when Oda's kind of debuting Emu in battle, in a sense, for the first time. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Brook has been useless throughout this whole series. His main arc ties to Laboon, so I'm happy Oda is giving him some additional character depth. I said this earlier towards the beginning of the stream. I feel like Oda always had this planned for Brook. Like, even going back to his origin arc, it's explained, like, Brook, like, this added context of Brook once having been the military leader of a kingdom before becoming a pirate was given to us, but Oda didn't tap into it. I think Oda always had this shit planned for Brook. He just didn't really have much to do for Brook, Robin, these other characters in the meantime, before we got to these arcs that he planned way out in advance. I also think, especially with Brook, because he's unlike the rest of the Strats in that he is not a character on a journey of growth. The rest of the Strats are all on a journey of growth. Like, they're developing his characters. Brook's a 90-year-old man. He's lived his life. He actually accomplished his original dream. He's just trying to fulfill a promise to a friend. So there's less room even for Oda to think of, like, creative, character arc moments for him in the in-between arcs, I think. So I think that's really a big part of why he also got sidelined. Dick so small I piss on my balls, thanks for the 5. Brook's music and Nika's heartbeat could end up breaking Emu's spell. Both can compel and move people, like with Dory and Brogy. Wait for Tuesday's video. Because I do elaborate on that quite a bit, especially towards the end part of that video. So watch out for that. Tifa, thanks for the 10. Agenda piece has ruined being able to have genuine conversations with people of this manga. This chapter was amazing, and I actually like Scopper more than Rayleigh, and I'm a Zoro fan. Yeah, I think just like on paper, side by side, Gaban is a more entertaining character, and he's already gotten a wider range of emotion and characterization than Rayleigh did. For me, my preference is still really just because of the time spent with him was greater, and like he's been more of a mainstay in the story. But like if it was a side-by-side thing and they were introduced at the same time, I would probably enjoy Gaban more as a character. Like he'd be more fun to me. Honestly, this might sound random, but I kind of think of like, if you think about Gaban and Rayleigh's personality side by side, they kind of feel a little bit like Inuarashi Nekomamushi. I feel like Inuarashi has kind of a Rayleigh type of vibe, more calm, more wise, more reserved, more thoughtful. And then Gaban has a bit more of a Nekomamushi vibe, where it's like a bit more wild, a bit less predictable, a bit more feelings oriented to some degree. I feel like I feel like that is actually pretty close to the dichotomy between the two. That's interesting. And for the record, I like Nekomamushi better than Inuarashi. I think by the end of Wano, I didn't like either of them. But over the course of Zou, I actually liked both of them, but I really like Nekomamushi over the course of Zou. Tifa, oh no, we covered this. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 20. Theory for Outside World, all right? Cross Guild attacks Rikogyu at sea. They are then ambushed by Tsuru and Sengoku. They fight their way out thanks to Buggy accidentally outmaneuvering Tsuru's strategy and Mihawk defeating Sengoku 1v1. So I'm with you on the Cross Guild attacking Rikogyu at sea. I do think that Weevil is going to get captured and everything. I don't know about the Tsuru and Sengoku shit. I don't know if they're going to be like that involved in that sort of thing. Sengoku was talking about the problem that Cross Guild was starting to pose, so he's the one that brought that to the forefront of the conversation in the story. So maybe there is something there, but I think it's getting a little bit too speculative for me in terms of Buggy accidentally outmaneuvering Tsuru. It's also tricky because, like, we've never actually seen Tsuru's strategies or genius strategies at play or whatever. So, like, immediately her getting outwitted by Buggy isn't a good look for a character who already doesn't really have much going for her. I also don't know if Oda would just have Mihawk straight up beat Sengoku, because it's just a thing at this point where when Oda respects characters quite a bit, he wants them to maintain a sense of like aura, respect, dignity. He always adds in more nuances to whether they lose or win, right? Like, to this day, we still debate like Kizaru lost to Luffy on paper, but to this day we still debate the circumstances of that loss, and it feels like Oda was giving Kizaru an out, like reasons to excuse his performance. Aokiji and Garp, that debate, still remains to this day, because I think Oda respects the hell out of both of those characters, and so he wants to give characters an out, even if, like, to me, it clearly... I don't want to get into that. But that's the thing. Like, I think even if Mihawk does fight Sengoku, I don't think Oda would ever just write, like, a clean story of Mihawk just beating Sengoku. Even if Mihawk is just clearly much stronger than Sengoku, I think no matter what the circumstances, Oda is going to write things in a certain way where Sengoku is not, where, like, you would always have an argument that Sengoku could have done better or something. I think that's just the way Oda's been doing it. I think it's clear the characters that Oda doesn't give a shit about are, like, Green Bull. Like, right off the bat from his introduction, Oda did not mind humiliating Green Bull. Why? Because Green Bull is not one of Oda's, like, sacred old-school characters. He's, like, this new admiral, just introduced, who's a giant asshole, not likable. So Oda's just like, yeah, fuck this guy. He pooped his pants because of Shanks or whatever, right? Continuing on. I could see Mihawk beating Green Bull, like, without too much trouble or something like that, and that could be a way that Oda hypes that. Cheesy Skull, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 11 months, man. Hello, Morge. With everything going on with this arc with potential cutaways, how do you think characters like Yuruj, Enel, and Kid/Law would fit in? Man, I don't fucking know. I'm gonna be honest, like, Yuruj... Enel, I'm just going to leave him to the side. I believe he will return in the story. I've always believed that if Enel returns, he will get fruit farmed by the fucking Blackbeard pirates. So that's just all I'll say about Enel. With Yuruj, I think he's going to be important. Because, like, the supernova that Oda saved up till this point in the story and, like, kept alive, Bonnie, Law, stuff like that, they're all important for the story in general. So Yuruj is a funny case. It's just, like, he could be huge in Elbaf. I don't know. I really don't know with Yuruj. It might give context to, like, some lore about Sky People that plays into the broader lore of the story. Maybe it sheds light on the mural or something like that. I'll always say this. I believe that Kid... Oh, I forgot to end this poll. I still believe Kid's coming back into the story, and I think Oda's going to pair up some of the missing pieces, like Kid and Law making a permanent alliance. I think Oda played with that in Wano to set the precedent, and I think that's got to be a thing going down the line. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, fucking Yuruj is roped into that alliance, but maybe that's just because I have no idea what Oda's going to do with that character. I think no one had any idea what Oda was going to do with Bonnie until, like, we actually got the Bonnie storyline. Continuing on. GDN, thanks for the 5. What would your reaction be if we cut to Marisha and Akainu and Dragon are clashing, completing the Monkey Family OG Admiral matchups? That's actually really funny. Garp versus Aokiji, Luffy, Kizaru, Dragon, and Kainu. If the trend is the same as with the other Monkey Family matchups, what would happen is basically Dragon kicks Akainu's ass, generally speaking, but at the end of the encounter, there's like reasons as to why reasons in defense of the Admiral's performance, basically, right? Because you get, on paper, Luffy beats Kizaru, but then you have reasons defending Kizaru's performance. On paper, Garp generally kicked Aokiji's ass, but you have reasons defending Aokiji's performance. So we'd probably get the same thing. Dragon kicks Akainu's ass, but you have reasons defending, Akainu's performance. My thought with Dragon is that no matter what, in the first time he's debuted fighting, because Dragon is the last OG. You know what's fucking crazy? Dragon is the last OG. Look at this. Let me show you. And this is how much hype Oda has in store for Dragon, okay? Consider this. I really think people underestimate the shit out of what Oda is probably going to do with Dragon. Let me show you guys. So, look at this shit. So this was, what? Over 300 chapters ago. 350 chapters ago, right? 350 chapters ago. Okay, that's the length of entire other manga series, right? That's like longer than fucking Jujutsu Kaisen or something like that, right? We got this huge spread breaking down all the major characters. Like, these are all the big players on the ocean. All the big players on the ocean. Yonko, Shichibukai, Supernova, Admirals, Revolutionaries. In this entire spread, there's only one character that Oda has still been saving. And it's one of the earliest introduced characters in the story. He's one of the 3 earliest introduced. Him, Mihawk, Shanks. Out of this entire spread, those are the 3 earliest introduced, right? Obviously not counting Luffy and Zoro. So earliest introduced in the story, him, Mihawk, Shanks. 801 chapters in, we get the spread of all these other major characters that have popped out. And now 1150 chapters in, there's still just one dude that Oda's been holding off on. It's this dude. This is the guy that Oda has decided, this is my big nut. Like, this is the payoff. This dude is the biggest nut possible, and I'm saving him for last. That's it. Oda's saving that's why Dragon, I'm so hyped for Dragon. Oda's saving his biggest nut for last. It's that dude. All right? The craziest thing is, I'm realizing with this chapter, fucking characters that have been introduced since this point in time, we're getting fucking Emu in action before Dragon. Emu is going to show us a little bit of what he can do before Dragon. The Gorosei before Dragon. Like, characters who've been shown as combatants even later than Dragon in the story, they are going to be showcased even before Dragon. Right? Fucking Joy Boy. We got a taste of his Haki before Dragon. Dragon is that dude. There is literally no reason Oda would just be saving and saving and saving this character unless the payoff is fucking ridiculous. So, my assumption is that the first time that Dragon is showcased in battle, it's gonna be something really, really, really fucking impressive. Because there's just no reason not to have done it at this point. It's just, if you compare the level of buildup Oda has had for Dragon, there is genuinely not a single other character in the entire story that compares. We have seen fucking Gold Roger, who was deceased 20 years ago. We have seen him fight before Dragon. What the fuck is Oda's obsession with this guy? What is going to happen when this guy finally makes his move? Nobody knows. That's what's so exciting. It's gotten to the point that people genuinely have stopped believing. They're like, you know what? It's probably not even a big deal. You know what? Dragon's maybe like the 6th strongest character or 5th strongest character in the world right now. That's what some people believe. That's how bad. Oda's hyped him up so much. It's actually gone, like, it's like the hype train went up the other side of the hill and then started coming back down. It's like build up, and then the build up is so long that you just stop believing it's ever going to happen. So it's like, maybe it's just not a big deal. No. Go read chapter 801, look at that spread. and tell me that Oda hasn't singled out that character as something special, even amongst everybody else in that spread. Shanks fans won't like to hear it. Mihawk fans won't like to hear it. Guess what? I'm just calling it like it is. I don't even fucking like Dragon. Who remembers how many times I've actually had to battle people in the comment sections of chapter reviews talking about what a dumbass Dragon is as this hyped up super genius strategist, when all it takes is like one photo propaganda hit piece from Big News Morgans for Dragon to be like, oh, I guess I fucking, maybe Sabo's just like turned against us or some shit. All it takes is literally like one photo and Dragon's like, oh shit, the entire Revolutionary Army, I have no trust in my commanders, can't trust any of them, can't trust my right-hand man, it's over. What the fuck? I don't like Dragon. He's done nothing for me as a character to like really make me, for me to find him endearing. He's done nothing but sit at his desk, look confused and sweat. But the simple, I'm just calling it like I see it. That's the character that Oda's clearly singled out from the earliest point in the story. It's like, well, this is the character that's like, that's Oda's big nut. I just gotta call it like I see it. That's what he is. Him and Rox, yeah. But the difference is that Rox was introduced to us like super recently, right? So same argument with like Garling and Garling we even technically saw a little bit of it at God Valley, but not really. Garling and Shamrock, right? Like these are very, very new characters. Dragon's been since chapter 100. He's got like a 800 chapter lead on these other characters, 900, 800 chapter lead on these other characters, and Oda's still saving him up, right? It's kind of insane. Yeah, Dragon has to do some mind-breaking shit, otherwise it'll be a big letdown. Yeah, I agree with that. Continuing on. All right. Mr. NK, thanks for the 2. We have Vegapunk, Usopp, Kabuto will eat the fruit. We have Vega, Usopp, Kabuto will eat the fruit. Oh, we have Vegapunk, so Usopp's Kabuto will eat the fruit. I feel like if Oda's gonna have Usopp improve, just have him get better at Haki. Like, I like the idea of the plans, because I like the idea that Usopp doesn't have broken weapons. Like, he just doesn't have broken weapons. He has to actually rely on just bullshit, like random bullshit. He couldn't keep fighting New World level fighters with, like, the level of stuff that he had pre-timeskip, like a bottle of booze and, like, you know, like fireball stars and stuff. So Oda gave him the plants. Plants, I think, are the perfect type of versatility that Oda could make some complex tactics for Usopp. But I don't want him to actually get something like Nami has with Zeus. Because Nami's always been different than Usopp in that Nami from the get-go, once she got the Climatact, she became a glass cannon in that her potential moves that she could pull off were actually really, really powerful. Like up there with the strongest members of the crew. She just required a lot of like setup to pull them off. But Usopp is the opposite. He's never been a glass cannon. He's been, I talked about this before, he's more like a damage tank with like shit artillery, right? Like he can take a lot of damage so he can get through a fight for a long period of time. But he doesn't have like the firepower that Nami has. So he always has to figure out his own workaround as to how to take down an opponent. So I prefer him working on his observation Haki, stuff like that, than him just becoming, like, getting a really powerful fruit. Or his weapon getting a really powerful fruit. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 300, because we're almost there. Reverend, thanks for the 20, man. I believe instead Blackbeard will take Emu's fruit. Nika and the Abyss are parallels. Joy Boy and Emu are parallels, but now Luffy and Blackbeard will have the Nika and Abyss fruit. With Emu's fruit, he could have multiple powers, not just 3. I do think Blackbeard taking Emu's fruit is a really cool possibility. I'm basically on the train of, like, ultimately, Blackbeard takes... Because Blackbeard needs a Zoan, right? So I feel like ultimately Blackbeard either is killing Loki to take his fruit or is taking Emu's fruit. If Blackbeard is taking Emu's fruit, then I don't think Luffy's fighting Emu. So a lot of this comes down to how important is it in the story that Luffy fights Emu. Because I don't imagine Luffy fighting, like, the Emu and his abilities, and then immediately after that having to fight that same thing again, like Blackbeard and his abilities. I feel like that's a little bit... I just feel like that's a bit repetitive, you know? Asana Haji Muhammad, thanks for the 5. We were told that Gaban is the Sanji of Roger's crew, and now is shown people talking about Gunkko, but 95% of the chapter was Gaban. What do you think will happen? in terms of what will happen, I think next chapter is going to be a showcase for. I think Gaban will be saved. Maybe Chopper does some shit or something like that. But in terms of like in the current action, I think Gunkko will be used by Emu as like a showcase of Emu's powers. I think Emu will make it so that the God's Knight's mission succeeds to some degree, and I think that creates the low point of the arc. And then I think we will cut back to Marie-Joie for a bit to see what's going on there, and maybe some other outside world cutaways, and then I think we'll be cutting back to Elbaf to see the Strats and the Elbaf Giants in the wake of their defeat, having to maybe train a bit and get stronger. Zikoi, welcome to the Yonko. Thanks for joining. Make sure to check out the podcast, and we'll have this Tuesday's podcast, obviously, and then every week's video as a podcast. And feel free to try out some of the emotes. Sorry, missed something. Hold on. Okay. Reverend, thanks for the 5. This means world government goes down first, Marie-Joie in flames, so who's responsible? And show ends with Luffy versus Blackbeard when One Piece is found, as Oda always implied. I have a lot of thoughts on like how the conclusion of One Piece will go. I think there are strong arguments for it ending at Laugh Tale and strong arguments for it ending at Marie-Joie. I think it's one of the coolest things that Oda has ever done, that even in a story where like there's clearly so much planning, right? And there's so much build-up, and we've gotten this far in the narrative, we still don't know who the final villain is or what the final conflict will exactly look like. And there's kind of two avenues, but both would be perfectly fitting for the story. It's not going to feel random like Madara and Kaguya or anything like that. Like, Oda's set things up that it's unpredictable, yet at the same time, either route it goes is going to be perfectly fitting for all the build-up he's done in the story. So I think that that's something that is underrated. Because there was a time that I think I and a lot of people felt like the conclusion of One Piece almost seemed like boring. Like, this was during Wano I think a little bit after Wano, where it kind of became apparent that the God's Knights are going to be the final villains. Or, sorry, not the God's Knights, where it kind of became apparent that the world government is the big bad of the story. That was always apparent. Sorry. Where it kind of became apparent that, like, Emu was, like, the big bad of the story, right? Before Wano, when we got the glimpse of Emu at Reverie, it was still a little vague. Because it was like, is this guy strong? Does he fight or whatever? But then post-Wano with the Lucia Kingdom destruction and everything, it kind of became clear, like, okay, Emu is the big problem, right? So if you go back and look at community discussions, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube videos, all of that stuff during that window of time post-Wano, a lot of people felt like the rest of the story seemed pretty cut and dry. Not in a boring way, but a lot of people thought it was like kind of mapped out, where it was like, okay, most people thought that we're going to Elbaf next, by the way. Right after Wano, most people thought that next was Elbaf. Egghead was a big surprise. But people still felt like, okay, after Egghead, it's going to be Elbaf, and then we'll defeat Blackbeard and the Blackbeard Pirates at Laugh Tale, and then the final battle will be at Marie-Joie, where we defeat Emu. That was kind of it was just like almost, it was extreme common consensus. Like, you just go back, look at all discussion, YouTube, it's kind of just taken as, like, it wasn't even like a theory, it was just like taken as logical assumption that, like, okay, the Blackbeard Pirates, they're a problem, but they don't seem like as big of a deal as like as Emu, Celestial Dragons, all of that, right? It seemed like that was being built up to be the true final problem. And that was especially the case once, like, we realized, like, the Sabo scene in the throne room, where it's like, okay, the Gorse are a big problem. So it just seemed like that was the natural trajectory, right? Egghead to Elbaf to Laugh Tale to Marie-Joie. But then, by the time we ended Egghead, it felt like a lot of things sort of changed. And it felt like Oda's kind of turning everything into not like split up and piecemeal, but it's like everything's kind of tying together and converging. And it feels like routes are opening up that Blackbeard could still be that final bad guy, or Emu could still be that final bad guy, but things are going to come together in a very elegant way, where it's not just like a sort of procedural sort of thing where it's like, okay, Strides get to Laugh Tale, beat the Blackbeard Pirates, and then they move on to Marie-Joie, defeat the world government. It seems like the way things come together is going to be more dramatic and more complex and more interwoven than that. So I'm just going to leave it on that, but I think that it would take a much longer video for me to kind of break down how I perceive a lot of the routes of the story unfolding and what I think makes the most sense. Blazing Blue, thanks for the 10. Hey, More, just got to the stream. Sorry if you already talked about it, but what are your thoughts on Brook / Gunkko? I think Brook's past is super interesting and ripe for deeper character exploration. No worries, Blazing Blue, but I'll just say right now, next Tuesday's video, which is already written, is all about that. All about that. I'm saving off doing any like theories about Emu's situation just yet because I want to see next chapter. But Brook's stuff, this just opened a whole can of worms, and there's a lot of stuff from Brook's past already that it feels like Oda wasn't showing us precisely because he was waiting on the storyline that it was time. So I think we got a huge indications in terms of like what Brook and Gunkko, like what Gunkko's storyline and how it could be tied to Brook, how that will play out in Elbaf, but more importantly, how this really can be set to elevate Brook as a character, and how Oda's been playing kind of the long game with Brook, in the sense that like he might feel underdeveloped at moments, but in actuality he might have the deepest story of any Straw Hat. So watch out for that. Oh wait, actually let me make a little note. Okay. Justin Holland, thanks for the 5, man. It could be really fitting if Luffy's first interaction with Emu as destined archenemies would be in the land that worships the former, right? Oh, Justin, you were actually the voice of the people. I already did the chapter review, but you were the voice of the people that I picked for this one. So, yeah, I could definitely imagine a sort of scenario where, like, Luffy's able to sense Emu or maybe even communicate with him or something like that. Similar to how Luffy had, like, Den Mushi conversations with Big Mom, Doflamingo, and even Saturn before meeting those villains. So if Luffy can sense and maybe communicate with Voice of All Things or something like that, that'd be really cool. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Hot take, Rayleigh and Scopper should have the highest bounties because they know what the One Piece is. So that is it's interesting that we actually don't know their bounties just yet. But it's interesting you say that because there are so many bounties in One Piece that just make no sense, right? Robin should logically have had a bounty way higher than 79 or 80 million berry, like way higher, right? She should have had that. Law, because his fruit is worth 5 billion berry, should logically have a bounty that is at least fucking 5 billion berry, right? They're just bounties that just make no sense. So Scopper and Gaban, it's like whatever. It's more so Oda does bounties based on. I think there was a time that I felt like the bounty system felt really good and made a lot of sense. Now I almost don't give a shit about bounties because they say so little. Like, they just say so little because it's gotten to a point where it's like, we always knew bounties weren't exactly strength, but I feel like now we've reached a point that it still felt like they correlated with strength to some degree, so it was exciting to see a high bounty. But it feels like we've reached a point now, to me, where not only do bounties not correlate at all with strength, they also don't correlate at all with, like, other outside factors' logic. And it's just like, they have very little meaning, and you have to kind of headcanon reasons for a lot of like strange bounties, and it stops being exciting seeing big character bounties when like some of them are so inflated. Like, why does Kid have a 3 billion berry bounty, right? It just makes no sense. And then like Loki's sitting there, who's likely a lot stronger than Kid, right, with a 2.6 billion berry bounty, and it's like, yeah, we know bounties aren't strength, but it's like in Kid's case, he didn't even do that much to get a 3 billion berry bounty. So it's not even strength. I mean, it's not strength. It's not like actual achievements or resume. It's just like a lot of the bounties just don't mean jack shit. Dorian Brogy fucking have bounties of like 1 point something billion berry. It's like, it carries so little meaning now because now I don't even know what to correlate which one with which, right? Like, Robin was always a weird outlier. Law was a real weird outlier because Law's bounty should have always been way higher. But now we've reached a point where it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't even know what to feel when I read a new bounty anymore. Nimi Chutron, thanks for the 5. I think Brook met or saw an important pirate during some sort of battle and realized his true calling was to be a pirate after seeing their freedom. That's an interesting theory. That's a really interesting theory. I also wonder if it has something to do with like, yeah, that's a good, why did he want to become a pirate? I do really want to find that out because he didn't, that's a really good question. There's not a clear goal as to why he became a pirate with the Rumbar Pirates. So I do want to see that. I think, fuck, what if Yorkie was the former king or something? I don't know. Let's just wait and see. Oda just opened up like an extremely interesting can of worms with Brook. I'm just so excited that it turns out that the straw that I felt was like the least developed is actually Oda pulling like the wool over all of our eyes, and he may turn out to be one of the most developed and interesting Straw Hats. Oda just had to save all of that writing for him for way down the line because it was too early. Justin Holland, thanks for the 2. One of many reasons, including hurting Elbaf. Yeah, I agree that Emu and Luffy interacting here and Emu trying to hurt Elbaf could be really, really good for, obviously, the next beat of the story. L, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 27 months, man. Thanks for the long time support. Ayo, that's Wild Morge, biggest nut. Yeah, that's what Dragon is. GDN, thanks for the 5. So Dragon overpowers Akainu, but Akainu has a line complaining about being in Mauricio or something. That could very well be the case. That I could easily see that being the case. Like Akainu being something like, I couldn't, like Dragon fucks. I don't think Oda's gonna have, I don't know. If it's in line with how things went with the other admirals, that is how interaction like that could go. I do think that with Akainu especially, I think it's unlikely that, like, I think Oda has a bit more leeway with making Aokiji and Kizaru look bad. I don't think even with the built-in excuse, Oda would jump to making Akainu look bad just yet, but it could be cool to see Dragon clashing with Akainu, Akainu having some sort of excuse as to why Dragon gets to look good, and then we all move on. Henchme976, thanks for the 2. Dragon's mama was gender-flipped rocks. Hashtag Rockomom. That is an interesting theory. Hashtag Rockabob. I haven't heard that one before. Shaking Water, thanks for the 5. Has there ever been a character in all fiction as hyped as Dragon? I've never seen a character hyped up for over 2 decades. Yeah. Like, keep in mind that, like, I'm exaggerating a little bit here with Dragon because what changed is that Dragon pre-timeskip was hyped with a lot of aura every time he was showcased. Post-timeskip, we've had a lot of build-up. I think maybe you could say, like, wait time or something like that. Maybe wait time to see Dragon. Like, wait time to see a character in action. I don't think the entire time that we've been waiting on Dragon, Oda's been hyping him up. I think that almost in certain, like, recent chapters and arcs and moments, Dragon's stress, his confusion, his lack of movement, the general sense that he's not as put together as he initially seemed has done a lot to deflate his hype. I think that is something to consider. So I wouldn't argue that Dragon's the most hyped up character in all fiction, but if you want to go in terms of length of time, I think that maybe there's a strong argument for that. I don't know every story, but I know in terms of One Piece at the very least, Dragon's case is kind of unprecedented in terms of how long Oda has been building and making us wait to get to see him in action. Ray Uchiha, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 31 months. Holy shit. Hey Morge, stop, can't stay at work, stop. Thanks for sending, is this what in Telegram format? Is that how that worked? I forget, is this how it worked? What's that thing that's like something stop, something stop? I don't fucking know. Again, I've had 4-ish hours of sleep last night. I'm running on very low sleep. We'll watch VOD after. Stop. Fucking hype chapter. Stop. Brook an actual daddy now. Stop. I don't think Brook is Gunko's father. I think Brook would have a very different reaction if that was his own daughter. But I do think that I feel like from what little we've seen so far, it seems as though Gunkko might be a princess. Brook was the military leader of a certain kingdom, so Gunkko and Brook might have a sort of Vivi and Pell relationship. Let me just check one thing here. Sorry, 1 second. Bane says Elbaf top 1 arc if Emu kills Usopp next chapter. Holy shit! What the fuck? I don't think that's gonna happen. What the fuck? Dick so small I piss on my balls. Thanks for the 5, man. It's interesting to me that Dragon and Emu are developed by the same narrative device, by proxy of their organizations and the conflict between them. That's a really good point. It feels weird to say that you're making good points when your name's Dick so small I piss on my balls, but I've gotten used to it. Good point, man. it is funny to me still that Emu's getting in the action a little bit earlier than Dragon in that sense. Zekoi, thanks for being a Yonko tier member. Shit. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member. Oh no, you just joined. We shouted you out, but thanks a lot. And then we've got some anonymous person who's apparently a Yonko tier member for 5 months, but I don't quite see what that is. Drinkwater, thanks for the 5. Hey Moj, what do you think about Chopper being the first out of the crew to learn Haki here? It would be a huge development for him, who's an animal. That would be wild if Chopper learned Haki, just because that seems like so out of his sort of forte. Because Chopper's always gotten stronger by just, like, working on his drugs and, like, improving his drugs. So to me, it's just, like, why doesn't he awaken his devil fruit or some shit, you know? Like, there's no reason Chopper can't whip up some rumble balls that'll get him, like, to that cloud stage, you know, like Kaku and Lucci have. Like, get those nice clouds around you. Out there possibility, he could also maybe figure out a way to, like, force himself into Sulong, although I don't know if it works like that. His fruit probably doesn't work like that, but Awaken Fruit, I feel like that makes sense to me as being the next step for Chopper. But if he learned Haki, that'd be pretty cool. Salvador, thanks for the 5. Do you think the story will reprimand Luffy for him eating while all of this happens when Gaban sends the Knights with Haki? Also, happy birthday, Carrot. I don't know. I think we've reached a point in the story. I might be wrong, but I don't think Luffy has been forced to develop or grow post-timeskip. He's had to get stronger. But, how do I say this? One thing I appreciated about pre-timeskip is that there were arcs where Luffy had inadequacies as a character that he needed to work or build on, right? Like, think about the leadership. I think a lot of it was leadership related, like the scene where they arrive at Drum Kingdom and Vivi has to teach him, and then all of Water 7 and Enies Lobby was heavy leadership learning for Luffy. And then even like during the whole Sabaody Marine Forward section, Luffy did learn lessons. A lot of those lessons circled around to like him needing to be stronger, but also recognizing that like the steps that it actually takes to being Pirate King is a lot more difficult than he thought. And then on top of that, of course, like recognizing, like getting time to reflect and recognize the value of his crew and what he's really still doing all of this for in the wake of Ace's death, right? Like there were moments that it felt like Luffy as a character had some sort of flaw or hole or lack of understanding that needed to be addressed over the course of the arc, and I like that a lot. I think that hasn't happened for Luffy in all of post-timeskip. So I'm not confident that we're going to get something like that in Elbaf. Yeah, I'm not confident that we're going to get something like that in Elbaf because, like, even though there's been situations post-timeskip where, like, Luffy's fallen short or whatever, like, let's say Luffy lost to Kaido in Act 1, right? Those aren't situations that lead to, like, a sort of character growth thing for Luffy, like, you did this or that incorrectly. It usually leads to, like, okay, well, you just need to get stronger or something like that, which is different. Like, it's never suggested in Wano that Luffy is doing anything incorrectly as a character, if that makes sense. The way it was in, like, you know, the Alabasta saga or Enies Lobby saga or the Marine Forward saga. And I think I really like when Luffy gets moments like that. I want to make a little note about that, too. Yeah. Continuing on. I would love for that to happen, but I don't think there's any precedence that that's something that's going to happen. Salvador, thanks for the 5. Do you think that... Oh, no, we covered that. Sorry, I just answered yours. The nerd story, thanks for the 5. Hi, have you seen Crap Cafe's video on Blackbeard? They say that the Buccaneers have special quality with soul and rock souls in Blackbeard like Cavendish/Hakuba. I do believe that Blackbeard is a Buccaneer, and that allows him to do something that's kind of weird, because it's suggested that his body is different, and it's also suggested that there's something strange about Kuma that allows his soul to work differently than others in Egghead. But I don't know if that means that Rocks is in Blackbeard. That would be really interesting. Paul, thanks for the 5. Potential deaths near the end of One Piece. Shanks dies versus Blackbeard, Dragon dies versus Emu, and Luffy dies versus Kobe. Okay, I don't know about Luffy dying versus Kobe. I do think Shanks dies versus Blackbeard. I don't think Dragon's going to die. I don't know if he's going to die. I think we'll probably need to learn more about the character, I think. But I don't think Dragon's going to die, because I think that generally speaking, these characters that Oda likes to write at the helm of these revolutions, right? Like a Wiper, like a Kiros, or even a Law or whatever. Like, throughout the story, like a Kinemon. I think Oda really likes allowing them... Oda often has them lose and be defeated. But Oda likes having them get to see the fruits of their efforts. Like the characters that are the leaders of these revolutions. He likes to allow them to see... Like, they worked their whole life for this or whatever. He likes to have that sort of sense of catharsis of allowing them to see their respective lands freed, the revolution successful, yada yada. In this case for Dragon, it would be the world being freed. It's almost like intensely tragic to a degree for the characters that Oda's generally comfortable with writing dying are characters who are like themselves written to be okay with dying, right? Like Whitebeard, like Ace, like Pedro, stuff like that. But with characters who are like hell-bent on seeing the revolution through and seeing the world freed, or like their land freed, I don't think Oda likes the idea of killing those characters without letting them see the fruits of their labors. So I don't think Dragon will die, actually. But maybe it's just because we don't know enough about Dragon just yet for me to make a good prediction about that. Marcel Beans, thanks for the 2. Morge, I got my prediction right? I actually remember your prediction. I think I didn't give it to you because you said something like Gaban. I actually specifically remember yours because I had to go back and forth on yours. I believe, off the top of my head, I think that you said something like Gaban defeats Sommers and saves Rania. I think that was your full prediction. He didn't save Rania in this, so I can't give it to you. I don't think I can just do Gaban defeats Sommers and give it to you because that's a little too straightforward. That's something that practically was already happening as of the end of last chapter. If I said something differently when you made the prediction, then let me know. But I feel like that's what I have written down for you. So I'm sorry, man, but I had to think on that for a little bit. Drink water, thanks for the 5. Chopper witnessed Luffy's Rio training in Udon 2. That's fucking true. It's Chopper with Haki is actually getting closer to being a reality. Something has to click for him here. As a brawler, he desperately needs it. I disagree with the idea that as a brawler, he desperately needs it, because one thing that's been kind of made clear over the course of the story is that, like, Haki is really huge. It really, really matters, obviously, but, like, pure brute strength still really, really matters a lot. So, for example, like, Chopper in Monster Point is no joke. Like, he was able to, like, grab and toss mountain peaks during, during Punk Hazard. Like, he literally grabbed a mountain peak and tossed it at the Yeti Cool brothers and, like, KO'd him. Like, it's, like, Monster Point Chopper isn't a joke, and he even dealt some damage to Queen. You can debate how much damage he dealt or whatever, but, like, he did deal some damage to Queen. Like, raw brute strength does matter. Sorry. Now, Monster Point Chopper is obviously not still strong enough to be relevant as the story goes on, but Monster Point Chopper is not Chopper's full awakened form. He doesn't have the clouds that, like, Lucci does in his leopard form or Kaku does in his giraffe form. So to me, like, Chopper could still awaken his fruit, and that could be the thing that boosts him up another level even. Because I feel like Monster Point is probably partway to his awakening, so just based on the Impel Down guards, Monster Point seems very similar to a partial awakening. So I'm curious if full awakening is what's next for Chopper via Rumble Ball. That's my thought, but him learning Haki would be interesting. I just disagree with the idea that, like, as a brawler, he needs it. Like, Luffy beat the second and third strongest Haki users of Amazon Lily and Island of Haki users pre-time skip with no Haki himself, right? Like, you can just overpower characters despite them having Haki. Dragonfire, thanks for the 2. I think Gunkko was the princess of God Valley. I don't know if timeline-wise it lines up, but that would be interesting. I just don't know about timeline-wise, because I think God Valley was like post-Brook being like a Rumbar pirate and being a Thriller Bark and everything like that. So I don't know if that adds up exactly. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 10. Even though Gunkko may have a redemption arc and develop into an ally, I still hope that all the shit that she did to Loki, Brook, Colin, and Gaban doesn't go unchecked. I can't wait for her to get annihilated. Whoa. That wasn't... She's a puppet. She's brainwashed. She's controlled by Emu. I'm sure she'll, like, apologize, but I don't think that that's, like, on her in that sense. You know? Hold on. Okay. All right. Might have to let the dogs into the room in a second. 02657, always good to see you, man. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 22 months. Morge, this doesn't need a reply. I'll be leaving soon. I wish to thank you for all of the entertainment. Bad things happen, and I don't know if and when I'll return. Crocomom forever. Thank you. That is totally understandable, man. But when you say you're leaving soon, I hope you mean in the literal sense. Hey, I'm sorry, man. What? I hope you mean. I hope you don't mean like, is this mental health related or something like that? It's okay if you never come through on a stream again or anything like that. It's totally understandable, but obviously, but like, when you say you're leaving, like, do you mean like? Can you clarify this a little bit? I don't know if that's okay, but do you mean in a mental health sense? It sounds like you're saying like a literal physical reality sense, which is obviously still really bad, but like, if you're saying the phrasing, I'm sorry, it's a little bit concerning. If you're saying you're leaving soon, bad things happen, you don't know if and when you'll return. I agree, Crocomom forever. I'm sorry, I hope it's not difficult, but like, do you mind clarifying if you mean like, like life stuff, like you won't be able to be online for a while, life changes, difficult life changes, stuff like that. That's one thing, but I'm just checking based on the phrasing if you're what you mean there. Yeah, as a donator, all of that stuff, that's totally fine. And I'm sorry if it's life stuff that became very difficult. That's totally understandable. 02657, if you're okay with clarifying, that'd be really good. You obviously don't owe any clarification or anything like that. I'm just going to assume that you just mean like for streams and everything, you won't be able to be here. And that's totally fine, obviously. But in case it is mental health related stuff. Okay. He left stream. Okay. In case it is mental health related stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Crocomom forever. I'm going to assume it's not mental health related and you're just referring to the stream. I think I'll assume that based on the phrasing. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. And thank you for the long time support. For those of you who don't know, 02657, like, one of my earliest supporters by far, and he gifted, like, countless memberships over the years. Like, seriously, so many memberships. Obviously, I imagine a lot of you in chat have been able to get memberships thanks to 02657 at some point or another. He would just come in and drop huge membership bombs, depending on how hyped the chapter was. So, yeah, long time supporter of the stream. Also, big proponent of the Crocomom theory. Yeah, just a long-time staple of these streams. So, thanks a lot for your support over the years, man. I'm sure, like, a lot of chat is very thankful for how many memberships you've gifted a lot of people in chat over the years. So, yeah, just shouts in the chat for 02657. One of the biggest Morge channel supporters for a long time, and one of the biggest mainstays of streams. And yeah, just he's given like probably hundreds, easily hundreds, I think easily hundreds of memberships to a lot of people in chat over the years, which I obviously appreciate. And a lot of you who have been in streams regularly have likely been the beneficiary of at some point or another. So big shouts to 02657. And thanks for the long time support, man. 22 months as a member. That's crazy. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. If Luffy dies versus Kobe, Morge will retire from YouTube. I mean, if that's happening, it's probably the end of One Piece regardless. So, like, it's probably that time regardless, you know? Duck20, thanks for the 5. Morge, you need to read some long fantasy books. Characters at the start of story losing focus is very common. I mean, I imagine that's the case. But, like, I can still hope for better for One Piece, my favorite story. Kid Smitty94, thanks for the 5. We might get a moment next chapter with Luffy's group sensing Emu with all that Haki. I do hope so. I think it'd be really disappointing if Luffy's not able to sense Emu's crazy Haki. My Chopper prediction was so close, but probably 1 to 2 chapters early. Shit, what was your Chopper prediction again? I'll have to check it again. You might be right. There's lots of times that people get a prediction correct, but they're just a couple chapters ahead or a few chapters ahead. Strahd Chaco, thanks for the 2. It's been 1,005 days since the end of Wano. You sad, bruh? 1,005 days? Oh my god. That actually just threw me for a bit of an existential loop. It's been 3 years? Holy shit. It feels like it was recent. I don't like that feeling. It feels like time's flown by. I really don't like that feeling. That's crazy. Thanks for telling me that. Juin02, thanks for the 10. Since music and Brook's role in the story are a topic today, did I ever tell you about the Loki Ragnarok and Roll Viking Rockstar Devil Fruit theory? There's an actual comic where Loki has an electric guitar axe. Oh, that'd be crazy. If Loki turns out to be a bit of a musician as well. That'd be really cool. I've not heard of that theory. Loki Ragnarok and Roll. Ragnarok and Roll. Oh, it's a comic book series. Oh, shit. Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool. That's funny. That's funny. That's interesting. I don't know. Oda's already done some references to other things, so like maybe we see that. That's an interesting point. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 5. I love how Gunkko calls Gaban a weak being when she's using Colin as a shield against Gaban, knowing she can't take him in an actual fight. What a bum. Yeah, she views emotions and stuff like that as weakness, which makes sense because like Gunkko has been stated to be like a very emotionless character. Like Somers even called her out as like the woman who never knew love. So I think that kind of plays into like she's because her humanity has been buried, so she views those emotions and sentimentalities as a weakness, not physical fighting weakness. Bane, thanks for the 2. What are the chances of Luffy running into Emu? I mean, I would love to see it. Like, how exciting was it in, like, Act 1 of Wano when Kaido just shows up out of the blue? And then Luffy also out of the blue shows up just to take on Kaido way earlier than anyone expected. That was awesome. That was, like, one of the best moments in Wano. So, I won't say the chances are 0 because even though Luffy's far away, Luffy's also... Oda's very unpredictable with how he writes Luffy. So anything's on the cards for Luffy. Selwyn 10, thanks for the 10. Hey Morge, pure speculation here. Do you think former Yonko like Kaido and Big Mom would also have the ability to permanently injure the God's Knights? Maybe that's how Yonko are chosen. I don't think that's how Yonko are chosen because I don't think it's like Yonko we've already seen are kind of like you kind of earn the title just through competing with other pirates. Like Luffy became a Yonko through that. Like, oh shit, hold on. One second. Okay, now we're good. Yeah, I don't think it's like an official ability that like is a criteria to become a Yonko, because Luffy, Buggy, and Blackbeard, as far as we know, don't have that ability, but they're all Yonko, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if just through experience and general Haki mastery, Blackbeard, Big Mom, and Kaido do all have that. Or sorry, not Blackbeard. Big Mom, Kaido, and Shanks all do have that ability. Because, like, remember when Kaido just whipped out Future Sight and he had that in his back pocket the whole time? I wouldn't be surprised if it's just something that they can do. Paul, thanks for the 5. Oda might end it Naruto style. Luffy versus Kobe like Naruto versus Sasuke. Or like Roger, Luffy dies from illness, letting Kobe kill him to spark a new era. I think that that's possible, but I used to think that that was what would happen, but I think the world is going to be so different. Like physically, geography-wise, it's going to be so different. Now I don't know if the story ends with Luffy on an execution stand or anything. I feel like it'd be very poetic, but like I can't even imagine the circumstances that would lead to that at that point, like Luffy just being executed. I don't think Oda ending it like Luffy versus Kobe, like Naruto versus Sasuke really makes sense, because like Naruto Sasuke was like the dichotomy that defined all of Naruto. So ending it with that, like there's so much storytelling that goes into their initial conflicts and then concluding part 1 with that conflict and then concluding part 2 with that conflict. Whereas Luffy Kobe is important to the story, but he's really not that important in the like. It's not like the whole story is written around Luffy and Kobe's dynamic. You know what I'm saying? And he's really only gotten, if you count up Kobe's chapters in the story, it's actually really pretty minuscule. You know. So I don't think he has that level of significance that Oda would conclude the story with that. Drink water. Thanks for the 10. Agreed with the permanent Haki infusion, BTW. Also, I think it depends on which Haki was used. It will affect the regeneration differently. I mean, it doesn't gatekeep the Strats from needing Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Yeah, I don't think Advanced Conqueror's Haki is necessary to do it. Like, I think it's something kind of like, you know, the idea of Ryo or like internal destruction. You can do that with just armament Haki. You can do that with Advanced Conqueror's Haki. You can do it with armament Haki. It's just Advanced Conqueror's Haki is the stronger version, right? So same thing here. I imagine that you can do it with other types of Haki, not necessarily Conqueror's Haki. It's just Conqueror's Haki is strong. You know, it's strong offense, but the effect can be done regardless, I imagine. Otherwise, I think it would just get too limiting, because it's not even about the Strats at that point. The fucking Revolutionaries. I think a lot of Revolutionaries are going to need to fight the God's Knights. And even if you want to be like, okay, well, Sabo might unlock Conqueror's Haki by the end. Maybe. Who knows? Other Revolutionaries, like Revolutionaries, God's Knights, that seems like a matchup that makes sense. So how are they going to do that? I feel like somebody suggested in the past that like Luffy could impart his Haki. If Luffy learns permanent Haki infusion, he could impart that Haki into some of his subordinates' tools, like Frankie's artillery or Usopp's artillery, and then from there, the Strats would be able to fight God's Knights and things like that. I think that's an interesting theory. I would rather see them do it on their own, but you know, it's an idea. Kind of reminds me of having like, if anybody has ever read Beelzebub, as the story progresses, like Beelzebub is able to impart like a mark or something like that on all of his like followers, and then they all gain some of his power. And I never really liked that, but again, symbolically it was good. But you know, we'll see. Salvador, thanks for the 2. Could Doflamingo be redeemed in the final war? No, Doflamingo is so fucking evil, it's insane. Like, he is evil. I don't think he can be redeemed, but I think it's kind of like maybe he could go out, like maybe he could die in some way that like helps the protagonist's side, you know, like a villain redemption type thing where like they still got it, like they die, but like they die doing something, taking out like an even bigger bad, you know. But Doflamingo is evil. Like, he is up there with the most evil characters that we've ever had. I think NL will always take the cake as most evil in One Piece, but Doflamingo is high up there. Z-Lit, thanks for the 20, man. Hey, Morge, been a while. What do you think of the idea that Emu can use the bodies and powers of those he grants regeneration to, like the arrows in the throne room? Maybe he can see through them too, explaining the Joy Boy Haki moment. The Joy Boy Haki moment would be explained by that. That is an interesting idea. I personally got the sense that he mainly does, like, I kind of felt like, I kind of assumed that Gunkko is the only avatar that he has like that, because Gunko's not a celestial dragon. She has some interesting sort of past. Her different colored eyes are kind of interesting. And she just always seemed like a bit of a servant or a slave, despite being a God's Knight. I don't know if Emu can just possess Shamrock like that. But that is a really good point with the Haki Knot situation and how Emu was affected as well. So maybe there is something there. That would be really cool if Emu can just possess anyone. I don't know. That's a really good point. I got to think about that. I kind of just assumed that it would just be Gunkko. Blazing Blue, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard not being able to sleep is a hard counter to killing him. Wonderful to see that matchup, and Blackbeard's crew gets the Kirin fruit. Oh, that could be cool. Did you say cool? My Cartman. That could be cool. I'm leaning more towards based on. I don't think killing him is like so important that he needs to be defeated by a hard counter though. Although Usopp would be an interesting concept in that Usopp already fears everything. But there was something this chapter that made me feel even more so that killing him will be an Usopp matchup. Killing him pulled out a bow and arrow, so it's already kind of like. Shit, like sniper versus sniper. I think that could be cool. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've seen Usopp have to fight another sniper in the story. So I think that would be really, really cool, especially if he's got to fight Van Augur next. So fighting a sniper on the world government side first could be a really great matchup. Akash Panda, thanks for the 10, man. My headcanon for how One Piece ends. 10 years after the Straw Hats have disbanded, Enel comes down. Luffy beats him, learns about space pirates, gathers his crew again one by one, and then they fly into space on a modified Sunny. That could be cool. That could be really cool. That could be really, really cool. Because, like, I feel like the only way One Piece... There needs to be room for... Like, I think the only two ways it ends are, like, the crew disbanding and Luffy dying. Because I don't imagine Luffy really just growing into old age just, like, as an old man. So I feel like either the crew dies and then... Like, either they disband and Luffy dies kind of, like... for whatever reason, similar to Roger. Or the second thing would be they find a way to set off for a new adventure, right? And space is always a good possibility. So I think that is definitely on the cards. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 5. Who's the most outlandish character that Luffy gets into an alliance with in the final war that still makes sense depending on how Oda executes it? So, I mean, like, Oda even had Luffy get in an alliance with Crocodile. Right? So, like, if you want to say just characters who are on the same... Like, if you want to say official alliance, or do you want to say Luffy's version of an alliance? Luffy's version of an alliance, as he explains to Law, is being friends. When Luffy's in an official alliance with you, he considers you his friend, right? That's different than what Luffy did during Impel Down, where it's like, okay, well, I'll accept that Crocodile is here and fighting the enemies I'm fighting, but I don't think Luffy would have ever considered that, like... Crocodile's a friend. So if you want to go by Luffy's own definition of being an alliance means being friends, then I think that, like... I mean, it depends if you consider it absurd or not. I could see Luffy being in an alliance with, like, Kobe and some of the Marines again, right? But the good guy Marines that he's friends with, you know? Otherwise, maybe Cross Guild. But Cross Guild has Crocodile. I think in terms of just, like, fighting side by side, I think, like, Cross Guild is kind of, like, the most morally gray that Luffy would be cool with fighting side by side with. If we want to get extreme, maybe we see fucking, like, Akainu and the Marines fighting on the same side as, like, Luffy and the Straw Hats or something. But that would take a shit ton of character writing. In terms of just straight up friends, I think it's generally characters that will make sense. You know, like, I don't think there's anything super outlandish. But in terms of, like... Actually, like, in terms of the broader sense of just fighting on the same side, I could see some of the more extreme Marines, like Akainu leading Marines against the Celestial Dragons. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. Daniel Iavorsky, thanks for the 5. Mod, what are your thoughts on Kaido as a villain compared to other villains in media? Also, can you name your top 5 favorite One Piece characters? If I leave out Straw Hats, let me just leave out Straw Hats so that people don't get, like, all whatever. If I leave out Straw Hats, my favorite... Let me answer that part of it first because it's easier. My favorite One Piece characters are... Wiper, it's tricky because some of my favorites have drifted. So Wiper, I still want to say Smoker. I still fucking want to say Smoker. Shanks, Mihawk. I go back and forth on. I used to have Mihawk as like my favorite non-Straw Hat to see in any chapter. I think over the years he's just given me so little. I used to not like Shanks, by the way, because I thought Shanks' design was lame because his mustache is lame. It's not a real mustache. Like I used to think Shanks' design was lame, so I considered the character lame. Over the years, it's tricky. I think it's shifted because Oda gave Shanks so many cool moments. Like, if you write a top 5 list of Shanks moments, it's like any one of those would be a lot of other characters' best moment. You know? Like, stopping the Marineford War, one-shotting Kid, scaring off Green Bull. Like, there's a lot of really cool... Like, anytime Shanks shows up, it's cool stuff. So that slowly moved Shanks up. And then with Mihawk, it's become harder. And, like, he hasn't done... I've waited and waited for this dude to do something. I think if we get some good Mihawk chapters, I think I'd move Mihawk back up. But, like, we haven't gotten any good chapters for his character ever since Baratier. And then, like, we haven't gotten any good chapters for him in, like, doing feats or, like, action or anything like that. So, I'd say Shanks, Mia... Yeah, so that rounds up my 4. And then 5, I would say 5th favorite One Piece character ever. It might be Akainu. No, it's probably Blackbeard. I'd say Blackbeard. Actually, I'd move Blackbeard even further up. I'd put Blackbeard above Mihawk right now. I'd put Mihawk at 5, Blackbeard at 4, Shanks at 3, Smoker at 2, Wiper at 1. Smoker actually might drop that, though. Smoker actually might be now at, like, the 5 spot, actually. Let's see. The potential for Smoker is always there with me. So let's see. And then with Kaido as a villain compared to other villains in media, I think Kaido has phenomenal presence. I think aura, presence, the stuff that he represents is very, very impactful. Phenomenal introduction. Has some great moments, like one-shotting Luffy, little pirate games, stuff like that. I think the build-up to... I think, like, the weight surrounding the character is phenomenally done. I think the character writing itself is extremely piecemeal and kind of shallow and kind of, like, weak. Like, there's very little effort put into it. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, no, you just don't understand Kaido's character because you got to piece everything together. You can piece together a concept for what Kaido's character is on paper, but that doesn't mean that, like, reading any of Kaido's character moments or anything like that carry any sort of emotional impact or draw you into his story. Like, you can understand the meaning behind what Oda's getting at with Kaido, but storytelling isn't just about, like, what the concept is on paper. It's about how that concept is really brought to life. So, in terms of, like, actually writing the compelling part of Kaido's character, there is not a single person who would read Kaido's little, like, first I was little, then I was medium, then I was big backstory and feel anything but just, like, utter, like, utter just, like, what the fuck is this? Like, there's no sort of storytelling effort in Kaido's actual backstory, right? And there's not a compelling story in terms of weaving together all the pieces of what he represents. Like, it's, like, cool in concept, but then in actuality, none of it turns into a powerful story. Like, none of it is brought onto the page in a compelling way, right? So it's like, I feel like the outline for what Kaido's character, like, that's what I'd say. I'd say ultimately he's, like, a very interesting outline for a character. And then the actual on-paper story of Kaido that we get is one of Oda's weakest efforts in terms of writing a villain. Drinkwater, thanks for the 5. Counting on Brook to rock Gunkko's soul and sever the connection from Moo's control. Just watch out for Tuesday's video. There's a lot of stuff to talk about there. Yeah, definitely watch out for Tuesday's video. I think you will definitely enjoy it. Z-Lit, thanks for the 5. My other evidence is that he can just take regeneration like he did to Saturn to kill him, almost like he can just give and take from those he gave power to. Yeah, so that's something that's been discussed a little bit, which is like, what if Emu's powers are ultimately like all of his subordinates' powers combined? Or like he has all these powers and then he just gifts some to his subordinates bit by bit. That would make him a really, really broken character. It would also give him like a shit ton of Zoan abilities for sure. It's interesting that he chose to give the Gorset all Zoans in that case, and then like Gunkko and Sommers and the God's Knights seemingly not Zoans. So I wonder what's going on there. Although at the same time, Oda sometimes just likes symmetry, so he just goes with that. JP, good to see you as always, man. Thanks for the 10. And as you said, 10 out of 10 chapter. I can't believe the random theory video I saw 2 months ago about Emu taking over Gunkko and her real persona being suppressed was right. They also said Gunkko was Mosa. Gunkko being Mosa? That would be insane. I never even considered that. And then Loki meets Mosa, and then Mosa beats the shit out of him in their first meeting, and he doesn't even realize it. That would be crazy. Yeah, Gunkko and Emu. I don't know. Yeah, I've even seen some people talking about how like Mihawk is like some Emu avatar now. I don't know if that's actually gonna be the case, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The chapter was just really, really good. And the craziest thing, it's one of those chapters where the chapter itself is phenomenal, but you also know that the next chapter is going to be even better. That's one of my favorite types of chapters, where like the chapter itself is awesome, but you know that that was just like the appetizer, and the real stuff is yet to come. Sorry, I actually got to send a message real quick. Hold on. All right. Probably going to wrap stream in a few minutes. Yeah, because Mihawk has red emu eyes. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't think anyone would want Mihawk to be controlled by Emu, because then it's just like, then Mihawk's not his own man. I feel like Mihawk's story is set to be really interesting, because it's also a story that Oda hasn't delved into it. Like, the One Piece world has so many swordsmen, right? It can't just have been Shanks that was, like, the last guy that Mihawk had to beat to become considered the world's strongest swordsman, right? So Mihawk's story is it's got to be a really, really cool story, especially because, I mean, the fact that he was betrayed by the Marines at some point, the fact that he was known as the Marine Hunter. I'm really curious to see what his story is and how it contrasts with Zoro's. Because, like, Zoro's story is one in which he, like, combined his goal of becoming the world's strongest swordsman with aiding Luffy. So it's just like, okay, if I go on this journey, I will also manage to become the world's strongest swordsman through being tested by battle as we continue onwards, right? But Mihawk must have been, like, he was like Zoro if Zoro never met Luffy, right? So Mihawk must have been wandering the world, just fighting characters left and right, trying to get stronger and stronger. Strangely, apparently never went to Wano, but that's... he was like, land of swordsman. Who needs that? Yeah, I feel like that's going to be one of the coolest stories in One Piece that Oda's touched very little on. So I do look forward to that a lot. I really hope it's not something like anything. I hope there's no connection between Mihawk and Emu. Because I feel like I like the idea that I'm somebody who's personally sick of, like, everyone being some sort of, like, descendant of someone else, right? Like, even Shanks, who we thought was, like, his own man for a long time, turns out to be fucking Figarland Shanks, and that's the strongest celestial dragon family, right? Whitebeard's our only person left. I guess Charlotte Linlin. Kaido's an ancient giant, potentially even fucking Harold's kid for all we know. Charlotte Linlin, but Big Mom's so lame that I just don't give a fuck. Who else we got? Yeah, it's just him, Mihawk. Yeah, it's just Whitebeard and Mihawk, right? They're the only two not special. Because even Zoro's a fucking descendant of Ryuma now. I just think that's fucking lame, personally. Sanji's a fucking lab experiment. Luffy obviously descended from, like, the strongest lineage ever, the Will of D. yeah, I don't know why stories need to do this. And it was something that I really liked One Piece for not doing for a long time. Obviously with Luffy it was fine, but like, why did Zoro need to be a descendant of Ryuma? Just to connect back to Oda's one-shot monsters? I don't know. Rayleigh and Gaban, says Henchme976. Yeah, I guess Rayleigh and Gaban, maybe they're good examples of just being independent, strong independent fighters. I think those are good examples. They're not like tippy top tier, I think we imagine. Well, we don't really know what they're like in their prime. But out of the tippy top tier guys, they're generally Will of D or Celestial Dragon based. I think most people believe like Prime Mihawk above Prime Rayleigh, right? So like, yeah, in terms of like the tippy top guys, it's really just Mihawk, Whitebeard, I guess Big Mom, yeah. Drink water. Thanks for the 5. It could simply be designed, but Gunkko wearing her mask, and now she is silhouette when Emu takes over. Oh shit. Let me see. Oh yeah. I don't know if it's. Oh shit. We'll find out next chapter. If Oda's just doing his silhouette game again, or if like Gunko's face has actually changed, or if he's just trying to do it for ominous reasons. Aether says, how could Heaven Realm be more important than Emu? Oh, that's a really fucking good question. I've yet to see a really strong, compelling idea for what goes on in Heaven Realm. JP, thanks for the 5. Hakuba also had emu eyes, didn't he? Wonder if it's a trademark of being possessed, not emu specific. Maybe ties into the cursed sword and Haki. You might be right. It might be just a trademark of being possessed. It could also just be the easiest way. Yeah, like it could be the easiest way for Oda to showcase a personality change, right? Like just have the eyes swap. It's just odd that Emu always has pretty intense eyes. But his name is also Hawkeye, so maybe that's just what Oda thought was a cool design. I don't know ties into the cursed sword and Haki though. I don't know about that. Also, guys, I think we're gonna call stream in a few minutes if that's okay. End of story. Everyone will have special lineage. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think gonna call it right about here. Sorry about that. We did go a little bit longer. But yeah, this was a really, really fucking cool chapter, and I'm really looking forward for next week's chapter. 1150 is gonna be fucking insane. All right, everybody, we're gonna call it here. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm glad everybody really enjoyed this chapter. I know I did, and yeah, Elbaf is shaping up to be just a fucking